right, Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, thank you everybody for coming out today. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good? Toe? Okay, cool. All right, so I may include y'all in the presentation if y'all dozing off. All right, but if you're paying attention, I ain't got to call on nobody. Okay? All right. all right. So the reason why I'm doing this presentation is because I want to give some clarity to a lot of things that a lot of us may misconstrue when we're reading the so-called New Testament, but I like to affectionately call it the Brit Hadashah. All right? Now, what this is designed to do is just to give you some background information based on my research. I'm not telling you what to believe. All I'm doing to you is giving you the research and information for you to take the tools and study for yourself. Okay? I realize that the best leaders are not the leaders that fish for you, but the ones that teach you how to fish.
Let's go.
I think they're missing that. I'm going to have another conversation with Frankie. I'm going to say it again. The best leaders are not the ones that fish for you.
Come on now.
They're the ones that give you the pole and teach you how to fish. Okay? So be careful for people that only want to feed you, but never let you feed yourself. Okay. Minister Carr did some excellent presentations in regards to some touchy subject matter in regards to the New Testament. All right? He touched on the virgin birth, right? He touched on the pre-existence thing, all right? So now, I'm going to give you some background information to kind of complement and supplement what he taught, so you can go back and research further for yourselves. Now, Brian locked the door. Nobody's leaving, right? So I'm going to sit here and take this information, all right? I know it may make you a little uneasy if you're a little dogmatic in regards to the New Testament, but I have to give you this information because once you understand it and digest it, you'll be able to see it with different lens, and it won't be difficult anymore. How many people in here believe that the New Testament is a difficult book to read? Raise your hand. Wow. Okay. You used to think that. No? Okay, that's a good amount of hands in there. All right. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of times we don't look at the information behind the text to give us background. So we can go back into the text and look at it and analyze it the way it's supposed to be. All right? So let me not waste your time. Let's get into this, all right? Now, for those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, please share this video. Check it out. Let me know if it's working fine. Anybody? I know it might look a little dark, but hopefully it'll take off a little bit. So I'm going to give you about a minute. Please go on Facebook. Share this link. You can go to my YouTube channel, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. Share the link. And once I give you 30, 45 seconds to do so, those of you who are watching me on YouTube, also share the link. If I'm a little dark on the screen, that's fine. This screen you'll be able to see. You'll hear me speak. So don't worry about looking at me. All right? So y'all did it? Good? You don't see it? What you don't see? What? No, did you go to my YouTube channel? Yeah, go to YouTube. You'll be able to look on my channel. It'll show you the live. And just take the link and just share it on Facebook. All right? Okay. All right, so while they're doing that, let me get started. Now, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, Harbinger, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, all right? So while they're doing that, the name of this small presentation is called Utilizing Textual and Historical Analyses to Determine the Hebraic New Testament Message. This is the primer edition. Can somebody tell me what a primer is? Anybody? Does anybody here do painting?
Yes.
Who does painting in here? All right, what's a primer?
It's a base coat
To do what?
to smooth out the pre-existing material or finish or drywall.
So you can do what?
Put the top coat.
So then you can put the top coat in. So pretty much a primer is something to prepare you before the real thing comes. So I'm just giving you information and a short primer just to prepare you. So as you study, you'll get more and more and more. And you're going to learn some things today that I'm sure a lot of you probably never knew before. All right? And that's always my goal. All right? So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go into the introduction. All right? So when we start, I always like to define terms. Because if we're not speaking the same language, then we're not going to know what's going on. Now, I may say some words that y'all not familiar with, And if anytime I do, and you need a definition, just let me know. Don't just let it go over your head. Stop me if you need to, I'll define it for you. But a lot of times I like to define certain things first before we move forward. Is that all right? All right, now before I begin, do I have permission from the elders to proceed?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. All right, let's get started, all right? And it's raining outside, so I know definitely nobody's going anywhere, all right? Brian, watch the door. All right, here we go. Definitions. First definition. Textual analysis and interpretation is the method communication researchers use to describe and interpret the characteristics of a recorded or visual message. The purpose of textual analysis is to describe the content, structure, and functions of the messages contained in the text. The important considerations in textual analysis include selecting the types of text to be studied, acquiring appropriate text, and determining which particular approach to employ in analyzing them. Textual analytics is a type of data analytics that is used to explain, understand, and interpret a situation or a person's actions or thoughts. Keep this in mind as we go through this presentation, all right? All right? All right, let's go. Second definition, historical analysis and interpretation is less a separate analytical framework or approach than it is an element that should be present in any analysis of popular culture. Observing and analyzing changes over time is essential to understanding why a contemporary text is the way it is. Let me say it again. Observing and analyzing changes over time is essential to understanding why a contemporary text is the way it is. Are you following me? Okay. I'm telling you, if anything, as long as you understand these definitions, does everybody understand what these definitions are? Raise your hand. Let's move forward. That's not enough people. What's the difficulty, somebody? Because if you don't get this, I might as well just stop right here. Is there any difficulty? Do you need any other additional elaboration on these definitions? Got it? For the most part? All right, cool, let's move forward. All right. So now, here's some action items that need to be addressed. So once you get this information, then when you go back to the text, you're gonna see it completely different, all right? So action item number 1, examining the Pauline epistles for the initial tradition of the ecclesia. What is the ecclesia? Church. We say it's the church, but it's actually the called out ones. Not a building. Okay? Okay. Second thing is examining historical accounts about the, and I have to put this in quotations, this is what they call them, Jewish Christians. This is important. Third, examining historical accounts about the Hebrew book of what? Or the gospel according to the Hebrews. Looking at the Markian priority thesis. Does anybody know what that is off the head? No? Okay. Examining some what? Extra biblical sources that what? Now, when I say influence the gospel, I'm not talking about as the events happen. I'm talking about over time, how things got added based on the person that was translating what was said, what was done. It's deep, but you'll get it. And the last one, which I may not get too much into today, is reconstructing the original New Testament message as preached by Yahusha. That's crucial, because that's how you know what the real gospel is. And a lot of times the real gospel is shrouded by the dogma of Christianity, because they've created what I call a Frankenstein. And they actually hide the historical account that was meant for the who? So-called who are following it. Y'all get it, y'all get it. Let's move forward. Now look at this. What does this say right here? The development of the what? Christological view. Do y'all know what Christological means? That's what Christology is. So Christological is a what suffix that does what? To the word Christology? I'll leave it alone. All right. We're probably gonna have to do an English grammar in here, but all right, let's move forward, right? So look, read that, Frank. Frank, Frank, you know you're getting involved, Frank. Read that.
First stage, sonship after death, burial, appearance / resurrection, and exaltation.
Say that one more time.
First
stage is what?
Sonship after death, burial, appearance / resurrection, and exaltation.
So the first stage of the Christological view of the individuals that experience Yahusha is this. His sonship occurred after these events and his exaltation when he ascended. Are y'all feeling it? Come on, man. All right, let's keep moving. Stage 2, read that, Frank.
Second stage, sonship during the baptism process, adoptionism.
Adoption, there you go. So the second stage is the sonship during the what process? The baptism process. Okay. Stage 3, read that.
Third stage, sonship at the time of his conception.
Affectionately known as the what? The virgin birth. Somebody's pushing these things back because somebody has an agenda. But let's keep going. Next.
Fourth stage, sonship in pre-existence.
Ooh, the sonship in pre-existence. They're just pushing everything back. So one event happened where everybody witnessed, and they had a particular understanding, but people started thinking about it a little bit more. So wait a second. Well, maybe it's this. They started thinking about it a little bit more, like, wait, maybe it's this. They started thinking about it some more and said, well, no, maybe it's this. Wow. Okay. I don't know if y'all getting this. Let's keep moving. But see, once you understand the development process, you can see what's going on. Okay. Wait, we're not done. Stage 5.
Fifth stage, sonship relationship explained via Trinity.
So that means if we stop here, like the historical account was, from the people who were the true eyewitnesses, we would never get here. But somebody's pushing things back, trying to figure out what's going on, and making it more than what it actually is. Okay. Sixth stage.
Sixth stage, sonship fulfilled via incarnation and confirmed after death.
So now, once we get him from a historical person who had a mission, an assignment, he was crucified, he was buried, he appeared, or some people say he resurrected, and he ascended and was exalted to the right hand of the Most High, sitting on the throne of David in the heavenly realm and working the heavenly sanctuary. Now, certain people started saying, well, wait a second. Maybe it happened when he was baptized. Because when they recall the events that happened, you know what happened? The sky opened, right? A spirit, a ruach, descended down like a dove, not a dove, like Minister Clark said as well. And when that happened, a voice came out and said, this is my what? Son. So now that happened. So now people was thinking about this and they realized this is like, oh, you know what? When he was inducted into the sonship, then he could start his ministry. And then they realized his ministry was really a priestly ministry that was operating on the earth that was fulfilled after he died and was exalted. But what happened is, you have to be an eyewitness account for these things to happen.
That's right.
That's right? So these things were contemporary to the people that was around him. But then, some other people came in and started thinking back a little deeper and said, wait a second. In order for these two to be right, maybe this had to happen. Maybe he had to be declared the son before he was even born. And you know, contemporarily, it would have the people who actually have to know this would be who? Miriam, right? And Yosef. For some reason, Yosef dropped off the planet, right? If you continue to read the story. There's actually a reason for that. I ain't gonna get into it today. But think about that. That's deep. He just disappeared. There's a reason for that. But I'm not gonna get into that. So then, small beast? Nah, not today. Future discussion. But look. Then the sonship happened in the pre-existence, so people start to contemplate and philosophize. Let me say it again. Philosophy crept in and said, wait a second. According to what we who are coming into this truth, let me say it again, we from the outside that's trying to jump in, we had a presuppositional thinking before based on our background, so now we're trying to figure out more than what needs to be figured out. Right. Come on. So then now once we get this part right here, because somebody sparked this off, Now we have a situation where now people are trying to understand, how is he a son in the pre-existing state with the Father and the Holy Spirit? So then now we start to have the development of what's called the Trinity. We have proto-Trinity thinkers. Then we have somebody like Tertullian who actually laid down the foundation of the Trinity, and that was before the Nicene Council. And then as events started happening, we had the Arian heresy, right? That was resolved, so-called resolved, because it really wasn't resolved at the Council of Nicaea. Because after the Council of Nicaea, people was like, man, I don't really understand this Trinity thing. And they went back to Arianism, which means that the Son was created at some point and was always subordinate to the Father. Because they're thinking about this. This is what they're arguing over. You don't need this. Okay, let me stop. I think I stepped on somebody's toes right now. I'm going to say it again. You don't need this. But we're going to see where it came from. I'm going to convince you somehow, just with research to consider. I'm not trying to change your belief, but let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Let's go. Now this may be a little small because there's no way for me to blow it up. But I looked at this and I'm like, man, this is excellent. Now Minister Carr showed you guys a little chart diagram that showed you at what point which one of the Gospels, epistles, etc. was created according to a timeline, right? Okay? That was invaluable. And if y'all didn't get that, then I got to walk y'all through this. But those of you who did get it, let's look at the composition of the text. See, once you understand this, when you go back and read it, things are starting to make more sense. I'm just trying to give y'all clarity on the text. Okay? All right. So now, the first thing was writings from the first 40 years, a generation's duration, all derived from Paul, which is a early creed. What's a creed? What's a creed? A declaration.
A declaration of this is how a certain policy is going to go.
Exactly, or what we believe, our tenets of faith. All right? A Eucharist. What's the Eucharist? And this is what they call it. But what's the Eucharist? Any of y'all been in the Catholic Church before? Yes. What's the Eucharist? Eucharist is actually, I'm saying, the Pope and the papacy and cardinals and bishops, whenever they perform the Last Supper reenactment, what they're doing is transcending. It's not transcending, it's transforming. It's a word, I forgot it. And that's crazy, I forgot the word. But, say it again?
Transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation. What they do is that they pray over the wafer and over the wine, and they transform it into the actual flesh and blood of Jesus Christ.
And that's why you can't fight the wafer too hard, because it'll start bleeding. That's what they do.
That's what they call it. So now you know who's responsible for adding terms to it. But I don't see that nowhere in the text. Because Torah says you can't eat the flesh or the blood of anybody. God? That's what Torah said. Okay. But if you have no law. Anyway, so look. Belief in the raised Yahushua, but no empty tomb and no virgin birth. Okay. Let's say it again. Okay, so what year do they propose that Yahushua died, was killed? What year? 33. So let's say 30 to 33 AD. We don't have no writings at that time. Nobody's writing anything at that time. Okay? So from that point to the earliest writings, which is the Pauline epistles. Now, during that period of time, Pauline epistles come into, we're about to get maybe about 50 to 60. So how many years is that from the time that he died to the time that Paul starts writing? About 20 years, 20, 30 years, right? So that means an incident happened, and 20, 30 years later, somebody who was not part of the original individuals and witnesses starts writing about something that happened who never had any experience with this individual. So now he has to recollect based on his revelations and hearsay what occurred. But interestingly enough, there's no empty tomb discussion and no virgin birth discussion. That's very awkward if that was the belief going around at the time. That would have helped to substantiate his claims. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, I gotta tell you, you gotta throw the dogma away. If you don't throw the dogma away, somebody's feelings gonna get hurt. But let's go through it. So this is what happens in the first 30, 40 years of generation, right? The second stage is the first record of the empty tomb. Now we're jumping from 50, from when the first text was written, which is 1 Thessalonians. Then we have Galatians, Philemon, Philippians, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, and Romans. And according to New Testament scholars, this is considered authentic and undisputed letters of Paul, which means that if you don't see anything in here, there's a reason for that. So people may call me crazy, but when you look at the consensus, the general consensus for New Testament scholars, they all know this. It's not a secret. Only people who are religiously dogmatic are the people who cannot accept the truth. And there's methods that they use in order to gauge this, that what happened. Remember, family, this is not Torah. Okay. Did I hurt somebody's feelings right there? No. This is not Torah. It's necessary, but it's not Torah. Frank, I'm going to have to talk to you.
Yeah, let's talk.
I think some people look at people's faces. They're like, what? So look.
It's not scripture.
It's not scripture. So now, we have what's called the Markian priority that I mentioned to y'all. The first record of an empty tomb. Now, Mark doesn't come until after 70. Now, what happened in 70 AD? Destruction of the temple. So now, the people who believed in a Mashiach or Messiah, that Paul was talking about before the Gospels were written, now they're thinking, oh, maybe he's going to come back and save us. But then the temple gets destroyed. And the Romans are ransacking the city, putting people to the sword, burning people. Now, what is going to happen in your mind if you was one of the original followers and he's saying, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's imminent. It's about to happen. And then you see the temple get destroyed. Are y'all listening? Yes. Okay, I know sometimes the history might stalk you a little bit, but follow me. So now they're like, okay, look, now we got to get this story down pat, because he didn't come back. That temple got destroyed, so we got to explain some of the words that he said to us. Maybe we missed something. Are y'all listening? We said, you know, Paul going around writing letters, sending it to churches and stuff to Gentiles, but what about us? Right. We need to understand within our circle what happened. Right. So the first gospel that was written was that of Mark. And if you know the tradition, who did Mark get his information from? Say again? Peter, Cephas, right? That's where he got his information. So that's not Mark's gospel. Mark is taking information that he's getting from being a disciple of Peter. So Mark is not even an eyewitness, but he's getting it from an eyewitness. Okay. Now, in Mark's gospel, there's no virgin birth. There's no Bethlehem origins. There's no post-resurrection sightings. There's no ascension. And there's no outlined divinity after death. And there's a reason for that. You know, Mark's gospel is the shortest one. It's very action-packed. Point, and it's done. That's it. We don't care about how he was born, right? We don't care about all the post-resurrection signs. That's not necessary. We're going to contain what's really important. That's what Mark did. Now, there's a book called the Markian, the African Memory of Mark. Great book. Please get it. Please read it. I'll bring it next Sabbath so I can pass it around. But when you look at the Gospel of Mark, these are the things that is going on. But there's a record of an empty tomb. As we're moving forward in time now, so we're going from 70 AD, after the fall of Jerusalem, after Shaul dies, after Cephas dies, after Yaqub dies or James dies, and the temple is destroyed and the city's ransacked. Now Mark starts writing. Because now he's remembering what he learned from who? Peter. So Peter's not there with him, but he's writing down what he remembered from being a disciple of Peter. Then we have Matthew's account, which comes after that. Now Matthew's going to come about 10, 12 years after Mark. Matthew's account is the first record of what? The virgin birth. Origins in Bethlehem, guards at the tomb, and an angel at the tomb. Now more is being recollected, or what we got today, somebody was adding these things, trying to figure out what's really going on. Are y'all following me? Okay. After Matthew, we have Luke and Acts, the first record of the post-resurrection Yahusha. Him eating, appearing, and disappearing, veil and recognition, etc. The ascension into Shamma'im, the Pentecost, which is Shavuot, and the followers' martyrdom. Now we start to see this in Luke and Acts. So by the time we get to John, which is about 95 AD, now we have an incarnation of Yahusha. Where does this come from? John just remembered things. Like, oh, I remember that. Wait, hold on. Let me go back and write this. Nobody else was saying that. The divinity claims of Yahusha. Now we start to see divinity claims in the text, which we can try to explain away, but when you understand the composition, you'll see why that's there. The 7 I am sayings of Yahusha, What's interesting, when you go to John chapter 4, she asks him, are you the Messiah? He says, ego eimi, Ego eimi is, I am. He, that's interesting, I am he. But we take the I am part and we slice off the he depending upon how the particle is, and we try to add it everywhere else, not understanding that when he's saying ego eimi, the first rule of inference, the rule of first inference, which means that he's acknowledging when he says that I am he, he's referring to his messiahship. They missed that. I might have to do a separate lesson on that. But go back to John chapter 4 when he speaks to the woman, the first instance of the word I am. It's supposed to be I am he because he's acknowledging a question that she's asked him, and he's keeping that consistent throughout the text. But people miss that. They misinterpret that. So let's keep going. We have Lazarus' resurrection, and then we have the long discourse with Pilate. So how come Luke and Acts, Matthew, Mark, and even Shaul, nobody has this long dissertation that Yahushua is having with Pilate? How would anybody know that when nobody was there? Y'all missing this. Okay, just follow me. Follow me. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. All right? So now we get to 6. Well, before we get to 6, now after from 90 to 100, now we have the book of Ephesians come on the scene. 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, Titus, 1 to 3 John, 2 Peter comes way later. And there's a reason for that. I'll read it in a second. We have 1 Peter around 90 AD, Jude around 98 AD, Colossians, Hebrews, and James are a little bit before 90 AD. Now, it's an interesting thing. When we read Paul's epistles, Paul talks about this grace. When you believe, you receive the grace of Yahushua, and when you believe, it's counted as righteousness. That's it. You're at the mercy of what Yahushua did on your behalf, and he has chosen you before the foundation of earth. So when you believe, now he accepts you in through your declaration that we get in the book of Romans. Correct? This was in the early. Remember, who was Paul's audience? The Gentiles. But now later on, we get an epistle of James that is written to the Israelites, and now we're saying, whoa, hold on. It ain't faith alone. We need to see some works. This is what it says in the Torah. Okay, they're missing. That was his brother. That was his brother. So somebody captured the words of James and said, hold on now, I think some people who are Israelites are getting the wrong message. We gotta see your works. All right? Faith is one thing. He's even the devil and his demons believe, but we need to see your works. What is manifesting out of that so-called faith? Y'all missing this, but it's okay. I'm working with y'all.
They missed it. That was Yahushua's brother.
They missed that too. And he was venerated in the so-called Jerusalem church because he was the leader. He had a following. He had a hope, and there's a lot of different works outside the text that's written about James. Y'all missing it. Y'all missing it. First Clement, y'all read some stuff. We're gonna introduce you to that. But let's stay within the text. So now look at this. Remember, the temple got destroyed when in 70 AD, right? So now everybody's waiting for Yahshua to come back, and he ain't coming back. So now look at this. In 100 AD, we get 2 Thessalonians. Now, why is 2 Thessalonians important? Let me see if y'all pick it. Why is the book of 2 Thessalonians important? Come on, let's go so I can get through this, man. Please try to get through it. Talks about what? Say that loud.
Talks about his return.
It talks about his return. I wonder why we start hearing this return. Now remember, when we get a situation where Paul was alive, he wouldn't really be talking about nothing about his return.
Right.
Y'all missed that. He was the first one to be martyred before James appeared. Are y'all listening to what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, when you read 2 Thessalonians, now somebody's writing about, oh wait, the resurrection didn't happen yet. There's people sitting there waiting like, hold on, man. He ain't coming back yet. What's going on? Somebody got to write and say, hold on, and explain some things for you. And that's when you read 2 Thessalonians, you understand why it's written the way it's written. Okay? Are you following me? Yes. Then you get 1 Timothy and Titus, called the pastoral epistles. Right? This is written to Timothy and Titus, so forth. But when you do textual criticism and then historical analysis, all that, you see that it comes around that same time period. But look at this. You have 1 to 3 John. But what I want to focus on is 2 Peter. Now, let's go to section 6, 7, and then we go to 8. So section 6 is the trends and gospel emphasis, the apocalyptic and kingdom message, which is really initially what was being taught. But then later on, as time progressed, when we get like the John epistles, now it's like Jesus is love. Oh man, I think y'all missed that. Jesus is God. He's the Father. High Christology and kingdom as heaven. Not your will in earth, heaven as it is in the earth. Not the kingdom of heaven is in the midst of you, but no. The kingdom is only in heaven. And you gotta come to us in order to get there. Are y'all listening? This is what starts to develop as you are being displaced from the original events and as outsiders are coming in trying to figure out what's going on. I think, are y'all listening? It's on camera. Run it back? All right, I'll run it back. I'm going to say it again. So now you're being further displaced from what you said, 30 to 33? Look where he died. And look at this. So now we have other transfer happening. So the apocalyptic and the kingdom message was initially what Yahushua was teaching, but over time, when outsiders come in who have presuppositions based on their previous experience with their previous philosophies, they're getting converted into this movement. Now they're taking those philosophies, trying to understand what's going on, and now they're extrapolating a philosophical creature as opposed to the historical individual. So now we got to turn things into Jesus' love. Not that he's teaching about destruction and judgment. No, he's love. He's love. Jesus is God. He's the Father. Even though he didn't teach none of that while he was alive, but I digress. High Christology supports these two things, and now the kingdom is heaven. You gotta wait for it. Can't do nothing here. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You know why? Because it wasn't given to the Gentiles. It's not their kingdom. You're the cleavers to get into the kingdom. But if we rewrite the narrative, we can tell you that, this kingdom is only in heaven. Okay. Can I move forward? Are you following me?
Let the puppies out.
7. Now look, you'll get to 2 Peter. Why this is important? Changing eschatological post-Jerusalem and post-first generations passing. So now, by the time 2 Peter's written, everybody's dead. All the first witness, everybody's dead. Everybody dead. Everybody dead. But now look at this. Once everybody dies, now it's like, damn, Yahushua didn't come back. All his original followers is gone. What is we gonna do? So somebody writes 2 Peter saying, the Lord is not slow to keeping his promise. One day is 1,000 years. Hold on. Pretty much that's what that's saying. Hold on. Does this start to make sense a little bit?
Yes.
Are you following me? This is why history is important, man. So Peter was there too? Hey, he was gone. He was gone by this time. So look at this. Number 8, Irenaeus indicates which Gospels are canonical and who wrote them. So Irenaeus, he's the first individual that started to try and compile a text to say what is canonical, which is part of the canon, and what is not. Because there were several things floating around during that time. And then we see later on, we get Athanasius and his canon. Then before Athanasius, you have Marcion and his canon. There's various canons that was going on throughout time. The canon that we have today is functional if you understand the background. I'm giving you the background. Let's move forward. I gotta move forward. But do y'all understand a lot of this already? Y'all getting it? Okay, smooth.
Good foundation.
Good foundation. So let's do with Paul. You ready?
Let's go.
How many of y'all love Paul in here? Raise your hand. There you go. You like Paul, right? But you gotta understand why Paul was doing what he was doing. And hopefully I can explain this. All I'm doing is give you background information. You believe what you want to believe. Let's go. So now, the early church traditions from Paul's epistles. Now when we looked at the timeline, who was the first person that started writing down the story of Yahushua? Paul and his epistles, right? So that means we'd have to go to Paul in order to capture the earliest oral traditions that was going on at that time. Then we gotta see who Paul was, what his history was, what his relationship was to all the stuff that was going on, and to understand how he started to develop his Christology. Are y'all listening?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 15:3. Read that, Frank.
1 Corinthians 15, verse 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 3. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received.
Okay. I delivered to you of first importance as I what?
Also received.
As he received. Keep going.
That Christ died for our sins according to the
He
scriptures.
died for our sins according to the scriptures. So it's that. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And that he was buried.
His burial, keep going.
And that he was raised on the third day.
He was raised on the third day according to what?
The scriptures.
The scriptures, okay, keep going.
Verse 5. And that he appeared to Cephas.
He appeared to Cephas.
Then to the 12.
Then to the 12.
6. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brethren at one time.
And these were all the people that was rocking with him. Keep going.
Most of whom remain until now.
Wait, most of whom who are still alive, but what?
Remain until now.
What?
But some have fallen asleep.
What does that mean? They taking a nap waiting for him to come back?
They died.
They dead. They finished. Then what?
Verse 7. Then he appeared to Jacob or to James. Then to all the apostles.
So now, after he went to Peter first, then he went to the 12, it says. Then there was 500 he appeared to, who some are dead and some are still alive. Then he made an appearance to who? His brother. And then to who? All the apostles. You see 12 here, Cephas, then James and apostles. Are y'all reading this? Yeah. I think people are missing that. Yeah. But I'm going to let you go back and type for yourself. But this is one of the earliest traditions that was going around at the time. This is what Paul heard. So now this is what he's teaching. Did you hear what I said? Yes. He wasn't there for this. But if you keep reading this epistle, then he says, then he appeared to me. Right? But what we're extracting is the oral tradition that was going on at the time so we can see what was the earliest tradition in regards to Yahusha and his purpose. We don't see virgin birth in there. We don't see no empty tomb in there. We don't even see miracles in there. Okay. But what I'm saying is this is the earliest oral tradition. Because when we looked at the timeline, we see when 1 Corinthians was written. Move second. Read that, Frank.
Ephesians chapter 5, verse 14.
What?
For this reason it says, awake, sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you.
This was a ecclesia hymn, or hymn that was going around at the time, that Paul absorbed into his theology and understanding what's going on, because this is something, again, that he heard that was going on at the time, and he put it in his text, in the book of Ephesians. Now, we see when Ephesians was written, right? That was much later. Okay, they missed it. Philippians 2 and 5. Wait, slow down. Slow down. God, sometimes this becomes difficult for people when they read this. But I'm going to try to make some sense out of it for you. Read that, Frank. Okay.
Philippians chapter 2, verse 5.
What does it say?
Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Yahusha, who, although he existed in the form of Elohim, did not regard equality with the Almighty a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a bondservant, and being made in the likeness of men. Verse 8. Being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on an upright stake.
Thank you. Keep going.
For this reason also, the Almighty highly exalted him, and bestowed on him the name which is above every name, so that at the name of Yahusha every knee will bow, of those who are in the Shamayim and on earth and under the earth, and that every tongue will confess that Yahusha HaMashiach is the Almighty, to the glory of Elohim the Father.
Yes, that he is the master. Now, this is called a kenosis hymn. Now, I could stop and break everything down, but I don't have much time. I want to get through this. But what I want to show you is these are traditions that are rising up, that Paul is now integrating into his epistles and then disseminating out to the people who he's giving this information to. Now remember, we're going to read in his history, who is he trying to appeal to when he's conveying this information? There's a reason why this is written the way it's written, because of the audience who he's writing to. Are y'all listening to what I'm saying? Yes. I don't think you understand. Let's move forward. All right, now let's look at some unique instances found in Paul's epistles. Are y'all ready? Yes. First one. Let's read that, Frank.
Never met Yahusha in the flesh.
Never met him in the flesh. Okay, that's a fact, right? Is that a fact? Yes. I'm going to say it again. Is that a fact? Yes. While he was alive walking around, Paul never met him. Never met him. Okay.
Never.
2, read it, Frank.
Only cites the words of Yahusha twice as found in the Gospels, in 1 Corinthians 9, 23 through 26, and 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 18.
He only quoted him twice? from what we can see in the Gospels? Now that would make sense if you ain't hanging around the brother. Are y'all listening to what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now, if you have revelations, that's different. I'm talking about while he was alive. Obviously, he's not going to write much because he wasn't there. I think some people are getting bothered, Frank.
They're getting bothered.
Keep that door locked. Let's get through this. All right? Write that. We'll read that, Frank. What's that saying?
Cites, quotes, and sayings of Yahushua not found in the Gospels.
That's very interesting. So he's going based on an oral tradition that he's hearing of things that Yahushua said, but we never find them in the Gospels. It's interesting. Interesting. Read the next one.
He's the only apostle who claims to have received direct revelations from a risen Yahushua.
That's very interesting.
Galatians chapter 1, verse 12.
That's very interesting. So he's the only one that received divine revelation from Yahushua and put it in his epistles, but we don't see no other apostle really writing anything like that down from the canon. That's very interesting. Well, I'm not going to say all of that, but what I'm saying is that's very interesting. I'm just giving you facts. Just facts. We're going to hear Paul tell you this himself. Let's keep going.
Generally quotes the Old Testament.
But why is that? What was his profession initially? He was a Pharisee. But what tribe was he from? So we have Benjamites that were Pharisees?
Politics, man.
That's interesting.
We're going to talk about that next week.
We're going to talk
about that next week.
Right?
Well,
All
we're
right.
going to touch on that.
No, yeah. So, all right, so let's move forward. Next fact, read that.
Doesn't mention the virgin birth.
Wait, he doesn't mention the virgin birth? But wouldn't have this been critical for early believers to know that he was born of a virgin? Because some people hinge this on salvation. That's deep, but Paul never mentions that. But yet he talks about the birth of Yahushua in 2 scriptures, but never mentions this. Did somebody not give him the note or the memo? Or did this never really happen? I'm just giving y'all some details for you to go back and research. Next fact, read that.
Doesn't mention Yahushua performing miracles.
I mean, would that not have been very important to the early followers to mention that he was doing all these miracles? Or maybe Paul didn't get that message. Maybe he was doing that, but Paul just didn't get that message. We're gonna see some stuff. But he never mentions him doing miracles. Maybe because that was not the importance of why he came. You see, I don't understand if you know how deep this is. When people start focusing on this, you miss the message. Because you're looking for this. Here's an example. Remember when he fed the people and they were full? He said, yo, we gotta go to the other side of this sea, this river, whatever. And he went over there and people started following him. Yes. And when they got to him, he said, man, nobody can do the things you do. He said, hold on. Don't come after me for the bread that perishes. Y'all missing that. No. So many people working for miracles today, not saying they don't happen. But what I'm saying is they only talking about him doing his miracles and you missed the message. Wow. Damn. Wow. So, and if you understand how things worked in the Greco-Roman world, you'll understand why. Okay, so let's keep moving. No, I can't complete it, Frank. I gotta keep moving. Now I want you to go back and research. He doesn't mention the empty tomb. Now why would Paul miss that? Either it's not true, or he didn't get the memo. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Yes. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just giving you the facts. It's not there. Okay, let's keep going. He describes baptism as what, Frank?
Being unto the death of Yahushua.
Romans what?
Chapter 6, verse 4.
So if I have a baptismal formula, which is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, what am I getting baptized into? Am I getting baptized into the power that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit has? Or am I going to get baptized the way Paul's getting baptized, saying this is unto his death? Did the Father die? No. Did the Spirit die? No. Paul missed that. Why he ain't give us no baptismal formula? Come on, Paul, you slipping. Last one, read that.
Limited acquaintance.
Say that loud.
Limited acquaintance.
With who?
With the 12 disciples.
Now, I didn't say this. I'm giving y'all only the facts. I'm just giving you the facts. Okay, they don't believe me, Frank, so let's go read some scripture. They don't believe me. Let's move forward.
Let's go.
Let's look at Paul's history. You gotta, listen, family, before you can get into the New Testament, you gotta know this stuff. So when you go back to read it, it'll start to make sense. Okay? Go back a slide. Oh, y'all want to take pictures? All right, go ahead. All right. Alright. I know I'm getting turned up. I see some people getting uncomfortable, Frank. Their seats look a little bit high. Listen, I'm not telling y'all what to believe. I'm just giving y'all the facts. Alright, let's read Frank. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
No, I can see it.
Alright, Galatians chapter 1, starting at verse 11. Read this, Frank. This is important. Now, this is Paul's testimony. I'm not telling you anything about Paul that he ain't saying himself. Go ahead, Frank. Yeah, go ahead. Check it out, yeah.
All right.
I know they can't see it on the screen.
Yeah. Galatians chapter 1, verse 11.
Okay.
For I would have you know, brethren, that the gospel which was preached by me is not according to man.
Slow down. So he's saying the gospel I got, I didn't get it from somebody. Keep going. Now this is very important. Keep going.
For I neither received it from man, nor was I taught it.
Okay.
But I received it through a revelation of Yahushua, the Hamashiach.
Okay, keep going.
For you have heard of my former manner of life in Judaism.
Keep going.
How I used to persecute the assembly of Elohim beyond measure and tried to destroy it.
Keep going.
And I was advancing in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries among my countrymen, being more extremely zealous for my ancestral traditions.
Say that one more time. For your what?
My ancestral traditions.
My ancestral traditions.
Wow.
Okay, keep going, keep reading.
Verse 15. But when the Almighty, who had set me apart even from my mother's womb and called me through his grace, was pleased to reveal his Son in me so that I might preach him among the Gentiles.
Among who?
The Gentiles.
The Jews.
The Gentiles.
The Israelites.
The Gentiles.
Keep going.
I did not immediately consult with flesh and blood.
Whoa, wait a second. So now you're going around doing what? And you didn't do what?
Did not consult with flesh and
I
blood.
didn't consult with nobody when I was doing this. I'm just trying to tell you, he's telling you, am I saying this or he's saying this? He said, I ain't talked to nobody. I'm just doing what revelation I got. I don't care about nobody else who been there shooting in the gym with him back in the day. I don't care about any of that. I'm just telling y'all, once I got this revelation, I ran out there with it. That's what he's saying.
I thought Peter was wrong.
Wait, keep reading.
Oh, okay.
Keep reading.
Verse 17. Nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me.
Whoa! Nor did I go to verify that what I'm getting. Wait, hold on. What does Torah say? Out of the mouth of what? It's every what? Word established.
Established. That's right.
I'm not saying he's lying. I'm not saying he's not telling the truth. All I'm saying is he's telling me. I'm not saying this. Paul's writing this. Keep reading.
But I went away to Arabia.
You went to where?
Arabia.
So he didn't even go to Jerusalem. He said, I'm going to go to Arabia. Keep going. To the trip. Go ahead.
And there's a lot of historical criticism.
Yeah, oh yeah. I understand. Keep going, friend.
And returned once more to Damascus.
Then what?
Verse 18. Then 3 years later.
Wait. Then after I did my thing, then 3 years later, keep going.
I went up to Jerusalem to become acquainted with Cephas.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Paul, why you ain't do that from the beginning? What's going on? Now this is very interesting. I'm just reading what Paul's writing. I didn't write this. Keep going.
To become acquainted with Cephas and stayed with him 15 days.
He was only with him for 15 days. That's it. How much information and revelation you can get from Peter in 15 days? And he walked with Yahushua. Can't get much in 15 days. Can? No. All right, keep going.
But I did not see any other of the apostles except Yaakov, the master's brother.
Now you know there was more than one James, right? Right. Okay. So then after he saw Peter, he took him for 15 days and said, oh, before I go, let me just say what's up to James. Because at least he was the brother of Yahushua. He went and saw James maybe for a day or two, chilled with him or whatever, and he bounced. Keep going.
Verse 21. Then I went into the regions of Syria.
Wait, that's important. Syria's important. Keep going.
Very important.
Keep going.
And
Cilicia. Keep going. 22.
I was still unknown.
Wait, I was still what?
I was still unknown.
I was still what?
Unknown.
By what?
By sight to the assemblies of Judea, which were in Hamashiach.
So the place that he should have been at. Right. So people can equate him with him, and they can look over his life. Now look, he only saw 15 days. How much can you learn about a person in 15 days? No, I'm actually, again, unless it's like opposite genders, love at first sight, that's different. But you still gotta get to know that person. Yes. All I'm saying is, how much could you know about somebody in 15 days?
Not much.
All right, let's keep going. He said, but I was going to know. Why? Because you're going to Arabia, you're going to Syria. You ain't going to where you need to be going at, Paul. So only thing that these people are hearing is word of mouth about him. They ain't meet him. They ain't see him. Keep going.
But only they kept hearing.
Wait, but only what?
They kept hearing.
Only saw what he did.
Hearing.
It was there when he was doing it.
Hearing.
Keep going.
He who once persecuted us is now preaching the faith which he once tried to destroy.
Keep going.
And they were glorifying Elohim because of me.
Because they heard this was a good thing. Just Pharisees who trying to kill us. Now he with us, but they didn't know who he was. They didn't know his person. They didn't know his character. They didn't know anything. They only know by what they heard. This is important. All right? Read this, Frank.
Galatians chapter 2, verse 1. Then after an interval of 14 years.
So then he's going chilling in Syria, Cilicia, and going everywhere else. Then after 14 years, what happened?
I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus along also.
Now slow down. The only reason why he went back to Jerusalem is because of Acts chapter 15. Okay, let me explain this real simply. Nobody was respecting his authority.
Okay.
I'm going to say it again. Now, you can understand why that's the case. They don't know him. So now there's a situation where it's like, yo, before that Gentile coming, he got to be circumcised. Paul's like, nah, he got to be circumcised. It's like, yo, Paul, we don't care what you're saying. Yo, Titus, you need to be circumcised or you can't come into this day. Paul's like, what? Did y'all not hear what I just said? I said he ain't got to do it. And they was arguing, disputing. The only way to get resolved, Paul knew he had to go in. He knew the deal. He knew he ain't going to be respected. He had to go to the ones that was really putting in that work, the ones who really fell under Yahusha, and they can best explain what was going on. So Paul had to go mostly because people wasn't respecting his authority. Because if they understood who he was and what he was doing, they would have argued with him. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, he's saying this now. Keep going.
Verse 2. It was because of a revelation that I went up, and I submitted to them the gospel which I preach among the Gentiles.
Okay.
But I did so in private.
I did so where?
In private to those who were of reputation, for fear that I might be running or had run in vain.
Whoa! What did he say? For fear that I might be running. Why are you afraid, Paul? I might be running or had run in vain. Well, if you spent more time where you needed to be, Paul, you ain't got to be scared of nobody.
Preaching to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Wasn't that the command?
Yeah, keep going. Verse 3.
But not even Titus, who was with me, though he was a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. Verse 4. But it was because of the false brethren secretly brought in, who had sneaked in to spy out our liberty, which we had in Christ Yahusha, in order to bring us into bondage.
Now slow down. Now mind you, he's talking about people that are with the apostles. And he's saying, there's a conspiracy against me. How do you know? Okay, let me say it again. I think y'all missing what's going on. Those Pharisees and the little people say, oh, you gotta be circumcised. They were with the apostles. The apostles know them. They don't know this guy. He said, listen, I gotta try to handle this in secret, because maybe what I'm doing is in vain. Because I'm out there, I got excited, I ain't gonna consult with nobody. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. So the good news is, if he was doing the wrong thing, he would have been corrected. But what he was doing was tolerated because he had a purpose, right? But after the conspiracy, but we did not what? Yield in subjection.
We did not yield in subjection to them for even an hour, so that the truth of the gospel will remain with you.
Keep going.
But from those who were of high reputation, get
past that, go to well,
those who were of reputation contributed nothing to me.
Why would we? Keep going.
But on the contrary, seeing that I have been entrusted with the gospel to the uncircumcised.
Wait, hold on. That he said, now this is his claim.
Yes.
Keep going.
Just as Peter had been to the circumcised.
Okay. So he's telling him he's going to. Keep going.
The circumcised and the Israelites.
I'll keep going. It's the Gentiles. Keep going.
For he who effectually worked for Peter in his apostleship to the circumcised, effectually worked for me also to the Gentiles. And recognizing the grace that had been given to me, James and Cephas and John, who were reputed to be pillars, gave to me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship, so that we might go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised.
Now, I'll read the rest. But when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed them to his face because he stood condemned. Now look, Paul's the only person that's given an account of this incident. I don't know what Peter has to say about this.
Yes.
But when I read 2 Peter, that's far removed after he was dead. So I don't know who put that thing in there about Paul's writings are hard to understand. I don't know who added that. All I'm saying is Peter was dead when that was written.
Right.
Come on now.
Okay, I think people, well, I'm not saying that. I'm just giving you the facts.
That's a fact.
So, and I'm not saying that that did not come from him. All I'm saying is he did not write that himself.
Right.
All right. It says, for prior to the coming of certain men from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles, but when they came, he began to withdraw and hold himself aloof, fearing the party of the circumcision. The rest of the Jews joined him in hypocrisy, with the result that even Barnabas was carried away with the hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not straightforward about the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas in the presence of all, if you being a Jew, live like the Gentiles and not like the Jews, how is it that you compel the Gentiles to live like the Jews? Now that's interesting, because we don't see this anywhere else in the text. So I'm not saying Paul's making this up. I'm saying if he did this in the presence of everybody, somebody else should have wrote about that. But nobody said nothing about that. Paul and Peter having beef? That would have been a really deep thing to write in some general epistles. Somebody could have said, yo, they had problems, yo. And Paul checked Peter. Even though Paul was somebody who was born, like he said, out of the union with Paul, just someone outside, he's going to check Peter. So that's very bold now. That's very bold now. And I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying Paul got some, you know what I mean? To go and check Peter. In the presence of everybody. Now, wait. Now look at this, Frank. And this is not a shot at Paul. But Yahushua said, if you have an ought with your brother, what do you do?
Your brother.
But nobody, he would have known that because he wasn't rocking, he wasn't walking, he wasn't alive, he wasn't. So somebody should have checked Paul for that. Say, yo, boy, you're right, but yo, that's not what Yahushua said. You take it to him in private and you handle your business. If he don't hear you, you get other witnesses. Then if they don't hear you, then you bring him before everybody.
Paul didn't have a warrant on his head. Peter and the disciples did.
They did. There you go.
He wasn't living that life.
He wasn't living that life. So all I'm saying,
he wasn't in the streets poor.
all I'm saying, yeah, exactly. Wait, that's another story. All I'm saying is, if he was around when Yahushua was around, he would have understood that message, and Paul would not have rebuked them openly. Not Paul, but Yahushua said, if you have an ought with your brother, what do you do?
Your brother.
But nobody, he would have known that because he wasn't rocking, he wasn't walking, he wasn't alive, he wasn't. So somebody should have checked Paul for that. Say, yo, boy, you're right, but yo, that's not what Yahushua said. You take it to him in private and you handle your business. If he don't hear you, you get other witnesses. Then if they don't hear you, then you bring him before everybody.
Paul didn't have a warrant on his head. Peter and the disciples did.
They did. There you go.
He wasn't living that life.
He wasn't living that life. So all I'm saying,
wasn't in the streets poor.
all I'm saying, yeah, exactly. Wait, that's another story. All I'm saying is, if he was around when Yahushua was around, he would have understood that message, and Paul would not have rebuked them openly.
Guys,
Yes.
could this be one of the reasons why the Gentiles took that Bible and switched around?
Because they see that Paul's the man now. He's checking Peter. Right? But nobody went back to go, because remember, there was no Gospels written back then.
That's right.
So nobody's going to check Paul. I guess I don't know what they were afraid to check. I don't know what's going on. But nobody told Paul, listen, Yahushua told us not to handle issues that way. But nobody wrote about this. What you say?
No, James and Paul has documented these.
Oh yeah. Well, you'll see later on. If we read like First Clement, the Pseudo-Clementine homilies and other things, we'll see there was issues between Paul's followers and Gentiles coming in and the so-called Jews that was contending with it. There was a lot of beef going on. Paul set the flame. All right, so let's move on, family. And again, I'm just giving you the facts because we read, Yahushua said, if you got an ought with your brother, what does he say? Bring it to him in private first. He said, nah, rebuke them in front of everybody. I'm the man now. All right. So what did Paul quote from Yahushua in the Gospels? I'm going to go real quick through this. When we read 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 23, 24, 25, and 26, he talks about the so-called Last Supper, right? And we can find it in Matthew 26, 26 to 28, Mark 14, 22 to 24, and Luke 22, 19 to 20. So we know at least when Paul got this tradition, oral tradition, we can validate it in what was written later by the people, at least by Matthew, who was an eyewitness that was around, that we know at least this phrase right here is authentic. Okay? Second one is in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 18, for the scripture says, and he quotes the Old Testament, but then he goes, and the laborer is worthy of his wages, which we see written in Luke chapter 10, verse 7. Which was interesting because Luke was Paul's traveling partner. And it was believed that Luke was not an eyewitness account to what was going on. Okay, let me say that again. And this goes, Luke was Paul's traveling companion. Luke was called a Gentile physician according to tradition. So he's a doctor. That's why when you read the book of Luke in Koine Greek, it is excellent. I mean, penmanship is off the charts. But when you read something like Mark, it's really crude and unrefined. And this person really probably wasn't that well in writing a thesis or writing a dissertation or anything. But if you're a doctor, of course you're going to write. I'll give you an example. If you give a subject matter to somebody has a PhD and somebody has a high school diploma and say, look, this is the subject matter, I want you to write on it. And you get the papers back, which one is going to be more refined? Which one's going to be longer? The PhD. Which one's going to sound like they're rambling a little bit more than what they need to? The high school. Because it's the way that you refine in regards to higher learning and teaching. And all you have to, when y'all start to learn the Koine Greek and you'll read through it, like I attempt to read through it, you'll start to see everything that they're saying. And I try to double check everything these scholars are saying. I don't trust everything they're saying. I go back and double check it. Some things they're saying is correct, some things they're saying I got some issues with, right? But we see he at least quoted him twice that we can verify, right? Now he quoted him in 2 Corinthians, I'm going to give you a few examples, 2 Corinthians 12, 8 to 9. He quoted him saying, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. And then he goes to say, well, I'd rather boast about my weakness so that the power of Yahushua may dwell in me. He quoted him again in Acts chapter 20, verse 35, and everything I showed you, that by working hard in this manner, you may receive the weak, and remember the words of Yahushua, that he said himself, it is more blessed to give than receive. Now, you don't have nowhere in the Gospels where Yahushua says that. But he's alluding to something that he's saying that Yahushua said because this is what he heard. All right? And not saying it's not true, this is what he heard. In Acts 26 to 12, and y'all can read the rest of this, this is when he actually had the encounter on the road to Damascus, and now he's quoting something that was said to him that validates his apostleship. All right? Let's move forward. Let's get into Jewish Christians real quick, and we're going to move forward. I'm going to read this real quick, because this is very important. The Jewish Christians were the ones that was around Yahushua. If they wasn't around Yahushua, they was around the disciples, and they were part of the called out ones in Judea, where Paul didn't go, and they ain't no Paul. So they didn't know Paul. All they heard was the things that he's doing. They didn't know him. So of course, they may have some issues with Paul, right? If you don't know what the heck he's doing, and he's going to talk to Gentiles, and we remember the Yahushua told us that I only came for the lost sheep of Israel. And they hear Paul out there talking to Gentiles, they say, well, hold a second. What the heck is going on? Of course, they're going to have a problem with him, right? I'm just giving you the background so you can understand what's going on. We're not saying Paul is wrong. All I'm trying to do is give you a real-life scenario, textual analysis and interpretation, historical analytics and interpretation, so you can try to understand everything that's going on in the narrative. So Irenaeus' account says those who are called Ebionites agree that the world was made by Elohim, but their opinions with respect to the Lord are similar to those of Cerinthus and Carpocrates. Now remember, Irenaeus, he's speaking from something that he heard. And he is an outsider that's coming in. Are y'all understand what I'm saying? This is the opponent of the Ebionites. It's not the Ebionites saying this. This is an opponent talking about them. Because conveniently enough, we don't have none of their writings.
That's a Christian.
Well, hold on, I'm not done. Let me get there. So he says they use the gospel according to who? But why would they use only the gospel of Matthew? Think about this. Mark got his gospel from who? Peter. Luke was the travel companion of who? Paul. Matthew was the only one that was there. Are y'all listening? Let me say it again. They only trusted Paul and Matthew's gospel because he was the only eyewitness one that wrote about what happened. So that would make sense, right? And if you read Matthew, he uses so many references, inferences to the culture of the Yahudim, it would make sense why only the Yahudi would want to use his writings. Okay? It's not a spookiness. I'm just explaining to you the reality behind what's going on.
Come on.
Now look at this. They repudiate the Apostle Paul, maintaining that he was an apostate from the law. So they didn't understand what Paul was doing. He going to tell the Gentiles, all you got to do is believe. And they're like, hold on, we keeping the statute of commandment. He telling them what they got to do is believe? We got a problem with that. Because they don't understand who Paul is. Paul wasn't there with them. Why are you even talking to them, right? But let's keep going. It says, as the prophetical writings, they endeavor to expound them in a somewhat singular manner. They practice circumcision, preserve in the observance of those customs which are joined by the law, and are so Judaic in their lifestyle that they even adore Jerusalem as if it were the house of Elohim. Why would they adore Jerusalem? Because when the feast happened, that's where they go back to. But as a Gentile, I don't care nothing about that.
That's right.
That's right.
Follow. Elohim then was made man, and the Lord did himself save us. Now this is Irenaeus saying this. Giving us the token of the virgin. This is him saying this now. But not as some allege, among those now presuming to expound the scripture, thus behold, a young woman shall conceive and bring forth a son, Isaiah 7:14, as the Theodotian, the Ephesian has interpreted, and Aquila Pontus, both Jewish proselytes, keep that in mind. But the Ebionites, who are indigenous Israelites now, following these, assert that he was begotten by Yosef. There was like a virgin birth. What the heck is that? Isaiah 7:14, that was already fulfilled. They wasn't following that. So he had an issue with that. Like, oh, this is what we heard. Now these other guys, who was actually around the apostles and Yahusha, they don't know what they're talking about. Are you understanding what's going on here? That's like you having a gang, Frank. And the gang know you, you're raised up, you're doing things, and somebody comes from outside the gang who was not raised up with y'all. The gang leader dies, he comes in the gang, and he's getting popular, and then he's telling everybody else when he leaves the gang, they didn't know what they're talking about. They don't know the original founder. I know more than what they're talking about. How could you say something like that and you was not raised in, I'm just saying. Okay. Thus destroying as far as them lies. Such a marvelous dispensation of God. And setting aside a testimony of the prophets which proceeded from God. Now, Irenaeus is saying this about these other peoples. Who's keeping the law. And he's not keeping the law. Are you understanding? Yeah. Hippolytus says they live comfortably to the customs of the Jews, alleging that they are justified according to the law. Why would they not feel that way if they're Israelites and they're still keeping the customs of the law? Why was Paul still keeping the Sabbath? Why was Paul still doing the feast days? What? I'm just saying. Now, Paul's doing those things. He says, follow me as I follow Christ. And it says, and that Yahusha was justified by what? Fulfilling the law. Because that's what he said he came to do, right? And therefore it was that the Savior was Christ of God, since not one of the rest of mankind have observed the law completely. Which means because Yahusha received the Ruach and such power and such magnitude, he was able to keep the law to the jot and to the tittle. Then I did my other lecture on capital punishment, human sacrifice for the atonement of sin, and I said the reason why he was considered or alluded to as being a sacrificial lamb was because when the Pharisees went to go inspect him for fault, they couldn't find none. That's why they had to make up lies in order to get him tried and get him killed. That's the inspection process that you do when you get the lamb before what feast day? Passover. You got to inspect it for fault, right? For issues. Pharisees doing the same thing to him. Inspecting for fault, inspecting for issues. Looking, damn, we can't find nothing on him. No spot, no blemish. For this Ebion now, Epiphanius, he thinks the Ebionites, from what he heard now, came from a person named Ebion. You know what Ebion means in Hebrew? A poor one. Somebody that's poor. Why? Because they believe they had a poor understanding of who Yahusha was. How you gonna keep the law and still follow Yahusha? That's a poor understanding. This is what these Gentiles are saying. Ain't this crazy? I mean, maybe it's just me. For this Ebion was contemporary of the Jews, and since he was with them, he derived from them that Christ conceived by sexual intercourse in the seed of the man Yosef. I've already said that and agree with others, i.e. Christians, in everything with this one difference. His adherence to the observance of what? The Sabbath and all the other Jewish and Samaritan observances, which would be the feast days. This sect now forbids celibacy. Their origin came after the fall of Jerusalem. He lived in a village called Kokaib in the district of Koronaim. There he began where the Nazarenes I have spoken about came from. Ebion was connected with them. Now we see reference to Nazarenes twice in the New Testament. And we know what they believed. Even when somebody said, when the Pharisees like, yo, Paul is from that sect of the Nazarenes. Paul defended himself and said, no, I'm from the way. That's a different sect. I ain't those Nazarenes. You know why? If he admitted that he was part of those Nazarenes, then a lot of the doctrine he was teaching to the Gentiles, he'd have to change. Are y'all following me? Okay, let's keep moving. Because if these Nazarenes and these Ebionites who are similar are keeping the law, and Paul said to Gentiles, you don't really got to keep the law. You don't really have to keep it like the way they tell you have to keep it. But I'm going to give you something a little extra because of our counsel in Acts 15. And I'm going to give you 3 of the 7 Noahide laws, and then now we're going to build on that. And I'm going to teach you some things from there. Okay? Right. Let me skip through this. It just says, Ebionites believed that Yahushua was a plain and common man who was justified because of his superior virtue and who was the fruit of the intercourse of a man and Mary. Now look how they said. They said a man. They didn't even give him respect. You see, it's like, I ain't even calling yourself. Just some man with Mary. How do you believe some man who they with Mary can produce a Messiah? They didn't give him his name. They being mad disrespectful. That's what we say in New York. Mad disrespectful. And their opinion, the observance of the ceremonial laws was altogether necessary on the ground that they could not be saved by faith in Christ alone. Which is interesting because this tends to reflect what we see in James. At least from their understanding. Let's keep reading it. But it says, he was born of a virgin and the Holy Spirit, which they believe. But nevertheless, insomuch as they also refused to acknowledge that he what?
Pre-existed.
That he what?
Pre-existed.
That he what?
Pre-existed.
Being Elohim, the word and wisdom. So they didn't believe in his pre-existence. They didn't believe in his virgin birth. They kept the law still. They kept the Sabbath still. They kept the feast days still. And now these outsiders saying these dudes have poor understanding. Are y'all listening to what I'm saying?
Yes.
But Peter kept the feast days. He kept the Sabbath. He kept the laws. So he must have had a poor understanding too. James did the same thing. He must have had a poor understanding too. Yachanan did the same thing. He must have had a poor understanding. All of you got poor understanding. Even Paul still keeping the Sabbath and feast days.
Yes.
He must also have a poor understanding. But you see the hypocrisy. They're not addressing that here. Are y'all following me? Yes. They thought it was necessary to reject all the epistles of the apostle, i.e. Paul. They said we don't need Paul's writings. Because it wasn't written to us. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Yes. So when I get in a discourse with somebody and they say, what do you think about Paul's writings? I said, Paul's writings is great, good information, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't written for me. Right. They get mad over that. Right. They get upset. Oh, what you mean? I'll just listen. Hey. But they use only the so-called gospel according to the who? And made small account of the rest, the Sabbath and the rest of the discipline of the Jews they observed. Etc., etc. And it says, they received the name Ebionites to signify the poverty of their understanding. They don't know what the hell they do. Let's move forward. Then we have the Nazarenes. I'm not going to read this, but you go back and research the Nazarenes, and they had similar beliefs. But by the 4th century, which is 300 to 400 AD, now all of a sudden these Nazarenes start subscribing to the virgin birth. I wonder why. Something happened where now we have an orthodox establishment by the state on what you need to believe. So if y'all teaching something contrary to this, we're going to look y'all out. We're going to find out who y'all are. We're going to deal with you. Now the state is involved. It's a different ball game now. Because now when we see what we call the Peshitta, the Peshitta comes from the Syriac tradition. But the old Syriac traditions did not have the virgin birth story. Somebody inserted some things in there. By the time we get the Peshitta, which became the received text of the Syrian churches, now we have the virgin birth, now it's all good. Now we can call it the received text. Now we put our stamp on it because now y'all teaching the virgin birth now. We got y'all. Cool. I think y'all missing this. But let's move forward. Let's move forward. And again, look, they considered the Mosaic law binding only for those, hold on, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. Some reference. They considered the Mosaic law binding only for those born within Judaism or born according to the law. While the Ebionites considered this law binding for all men. So now they tell you some of the differences that these groups had. So the Ebionites saying, well, this law, everybody got fallen in it. Nazarenes saying, no, it's only for the Israelites. So when it comes to that kind of distinction there, I fall more with the Nazarenes, right? So they had some minor differences. The Nazarenes, what? Rejected Paul. the apostle to the Gentiles. They rejected him. And when we go and we hear when Paul's tried, the Pharisees say, yo, he's one of the Nazarenes. He said, now I'm from the way. Because he had beef with them. Are y'all understand what's going on background? He is the last one of the church fathers to refer to the Nazarenes, who probably was absorbed in the course of the 5th century, partly by Judaism and partly by Christianity. And we have no writings from them today, no extra biblical writings, no scriptures from them. We got nothing. There's a reason for that. Why did this third group just get wiped off the planet, but the Jews and Christians get to survive? Because they got it right. Okay. I'm not going to teach this now, but they got it right. You said, why are you messing out? Because the people who was really the danger got wiped out. The real problems got wiped out. They kept the law and they held to Yahushua the Mashiach. Right? Let's move forward. There's 2 books that you can get called Excommunicating the Faithful, Jewish Christianity in the Early Church, by Ken Howard, and then Ray A. Pritz writes Nazarene Jewish Christianity. When you read these 2 books, they give you more details on who this sect was, why they were persecuted, why they got absorbed and books got burnt. They go through all of that. This is heavy, family. All right, let's keep moving. Textual analysis, let's run through this real quick. Now, the book of Matthew was for who? Now, remember I read this to y'all earlier, and I said why they will hold to the book of Matthew, because the book of Matthew talks about the culture of the Israelites. It says that Yahshua only came for the lost sheep, right? He didn't come to destroy the law. See all these things in Matthew. Of course, if I'm an Israelite, I'm going to hold to that. Okay? Finally, in recent work, David Sim agrees in large measure that these studies describing the Matthean community as a Jewish group of believers in Jesus. Though they may believe in Yahushua as the Mashiach, their community, Sim thinks, is best not labeled Christianity. That's deep. That's deep. I'm not going to read all of this. Let me just read this paragraph. The Jewishness of the Gospel of Matthew is profound and systemic. And its opening verse describes itself as the book of the lineage of Yahushua HaMashiach, the son of David, and the son of Abraham, which we don't find in Luke. Luke starts to Adam. Luke want to bring everybody in. Matthew's like, hold on now. We talking about Abraham, the covenant keeper, the one that they was officially with, to David. Now we're getting to Yahushua. Now you understand the differences in regards to the 2 Gospels. Come on. Especially when Luke is a Gentile physician that's following around Paul. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Yes. Paul trying to bring everybody in. Anybody, you get in. Everybody, you get in. And other people, the other Israelites, well, hold on, wait, Paul, you bringing so many people in. The reason why they had an issue is because Paul, and in their mind, Paul was not doing things in accordance to how the apostles wrote. So now he's bringing in some people in that's questionable. Very questionable. Very questionable. And then now we see what happens to this movement. Okay. Concept, bro. The biblical tone of this terminology will immediately be evident to a synagogue attendant, Torah observant Jew of the 1st century. Okay? Okay. It says, this language recalls the genealogical reference to the first human being. This is the book of the lineage of Adam. Matthew declares that Yahshua is the Messiah to be the son of David, thus drawing attention to the Davidic and royal heritage, and the son of Abraham, thus linking Yahushua to Israel's great founding patriarch, and by looking back to the very beginning of Elohim's people, reminding Jewish readers of the whole of Israel's history from Abraham to the Mashiach. Given the Jewish character of this gospel, it is not surprising that it was influential to the early Jewish church. Not only did a form of this gospel circulate in Hebrew, well, hold on. Not only did a form of it circulate in Hebrew, but it seems to have served as a foundational text out of which emerged the Aramaic Jewish gospel, usually identified as the gospel of the Nazarenes, and the Greek Jewish gospel, usually identified as the gospel of the Ebionites. Thus, 2 of the 3 best known and most often mentioned Jewish gospels are heavily dependent upon Matthew, and indeed may in fact be rescissions of it. That's very important. The Gospel of Matthew, you have Irenaeus speaks about it, but the Ebionites use the Gospel, which is according to Matthew. Eusebius says Hegesippus made use of his memoirs of the Gospel according to Matthew. He says also, and among them, some have placed the Gospel according to Hebrews, which is a special delight of those of the Hebrews who have accepted Yahushua. He says, as we have found somewhere in the Gospel which the Jews have in the Hebrew tongue, which it is said, and he gives a quote from it. So it means it existed. That's a textual variant. When we compare it to the other Greek manuscripts, that's interesting, because this is originally written in Greek. So if you take this Greek phrase that was written in Greek, you compare it to a Greek manuscript, you can look at textual differences, textual variants. That's very interesting. That's the type of work I like to do the best that I can. Epiphanius says they used the gospel according to Matthew quite complete in Hebrew, but this gospel is certainly still preserved among them as it was first written in Hebrew letters. But then he goes to say, but the Ebionites version is mutilated and forged. We're going to see why he's saying that. Then he goes on to say, this part right here, but these people have something else in mind. They falsified the genealogical tables in Matthew. And then they open it up to Matthew chapter 3. So they go from Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, all the way down to genealogy, and they stop right there. Then they just jump to Matthew 3. So he's saying they got something else in mind. Why ain't they adding this part of the story? Then I got in my Greek translation that Jerome says we don't know who translated it. Now, that's different. Jerome says that. I didn't say that. Jerome says we don't know who translated the Greek, but we at least know that the book of Matthew was in Hebrew and it came from Matthew. Now, that's deep. I don't know if y'all understand what I just said. He says we don't know who translated the Greek version of Matthew. We don't know. Okay. Now I don't know if you understand what that means, but the reason why he's saying they falsified the genealogical table is what do? They don't add Adam in there. They start with Abraham. And then from Abraham, they go to Yahusha, but the begetting agent of Yahusha is Yosef and not Miriam. So he's calling foul on that. What are they talking about? He wasn't born of a virgin birth. So they said they falsified those genealogical tables. They didn't falsify nothing. That was the tradition that they had, based on what they knew. But here's an outsider. You know what year he came? He came on the scene? Y'all need to research what year this guy came on the scene. He was nowhere near when everything was first going down that these Ebionites and these Nazarenes was keeping their traditions from. Unchanged, unhindered. Okay? Jerome also says, we read in the Hebrew gospel, and then he gives a quote. Then he says also in his illustrious men, he says, also the gospel according to the Hebrews, lately translated by me into Greek in Latin speech, which Origin often uses. Then he gives you a quote. Then he says, in the gospel which the Nazarenes and Ebionites use, which I have lately translated into Greek from Hebrew, and which is called by many, or most people, the original Matthew. This man who has withered hand, described as a mason, and he gives you a quote from it. Then he says, in the gospel according to Hebrews, which is indeed the Chaldean, Aramaic, and Syrian speech, but is written in Hebrew letters, which the Nazarenes use to this day. We see when Jerome was alive. To that day, they had it. Called the gospel according to the apostle, or as most termed it, according to Matthew, which can also be seen in the library of Caesarea. But when we get most of our stuff from Caesarea, we don't find that book there no more. It's just gone. It's gone. It's just gone. The stichometry of Nicephorus. He goes and he looks at the various dubious or the anti-legomena. Those are the ones that they call spurious, dubious, or questionable epistles or whatever. He's going to surveying the Apocalypse of John, Apocalypse of Peter, Epistle of Barnabas, and the gospel according to the Hebrews, he says is 2,200 lines, but 300 lines less than the canonical Matthew. Which means that the Hebrew version of Matthew, who he's saying that's suspect, we don't want to deal with that. We like this Greek version, but when I compare it to the Greek version, it's missing 300 lines. That's interesting, but people get mad at me when I say these Greek texts could possibly have been interpolated based on history. I'm not making this up. I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm giving you the facts. So out of these 300 lines, if you understand the research that I do, you can start to deduce to see which parts of the Greek manuscript actually was not originally there, based on what was being taught by the people who subscribed to it and the various quotations of it from these church fathers. Are y'all following me? Yes. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, to be honest with you. I'm just telling you the facts. I'm not making this up. Now, I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read the top. Some manuscripts of the Gospels have marginal notes. Have you ever seen actual manuscripts? They have marginal notes. Recording readings of the Jewish gospel by which our gospel is evidently meant. Some of these were published by Tischendorf. Others were by Schmidtke. According to the latter, these notes were originally made between 370 and 500 by some men who did this work at Jerusalem. Remember they talked about the Ebionites and Nazarenes and how they revered Jerusalem? Yeah. That's deep. So now when we get these manuscripts, these Greek manuscripts, whoever is copying these manuscripts in Jerusalem decided to go out of their way and make marginal notes comparing it to the Greek Gospel of Matthew that was in circulation. And anytime they came across something that was different, they gave you a note about it. And if you read all of these are variants and differences that you don't find nowhere else in none of the Greek manuscripts. But it was in the original Gospel of Matthew. And as we start to go through these things, from the quotation church fathers, from these marginal notes, you then can see what is authentically Hebrew and what has been translated to Greek and what was added later. It's a heavy work, and I've been doing this for a while. I'm still not finished. It's a lot of work. For one person to do, it's a lot of work. If you want to get an idea of the reconstruction of the Gospel according to the Hebrews, you get the Gospel according to the Hebrews by Edward B. Nicholson. You can download this for free. Just type it in online, and you can get it from the Library of Congress. I think that's where it's archived. And you can read one person who decided that, well, you know what, this is interesting subject matter. Let me try and collate everything and make sense out of it. So I build a lot of this work, and I prove upon this work, because it's written before the 1900s. So he was limited to what he had access to. He even admitted that he didn't even speak Syrian. He couldn't read Syriac. So he had to get assistance from a rabbi he knew that actually did read it. So now, if we're able to teach ourselves to go to school to read the Syriac, we can start better translating things than he even could. So he had some limitations, but he made an attempt. But you would think a lot of people would be interested in reconstructing this. Not a lot of work out there on this. There's a reason for that. A lot of other things will come out that they don't teach you in church. I'm just saying. How many of y'all learned about this stuff in the church? Raise your hand. Nobody raise their hand? Come on, y'all playing games. So I'm going to read this real quick. The gospel reaching Syria, according to the New Testament, right? And Matthew 4:23, Yahushua was going throughout Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. No, the gospel of Christ. The gospel of Christ. The gospel of his death, burial, and resurrection. You know that message wasn't in his kingdom gospel, right? He kept telling us, like, well, hold on. Don't tell nobody I'm going to die. Well, hold on, but this is essential to the gospel, right? But he's telling them, don't tell nobody I'm going to die. That's very interesting. If that was essential to the gospel, why is he telling them, don't tell nobody I'm about to die, but take this gospel of the kingdom and give it to all the Jews? Don't go to by the way Samaritans and the Gentiles, only give it to our people. That's very important. Very important, because at that point, they didn't know he was going to die. They heard him say these things, they didn't understand that, what is he talking about? He's going to die. He even told Peter, yo, I'm about to go die. He said, nah, son, you're not going nowhere. We're going to keep you alive. And Peter was faithful to that, all the way to the point where he cut off the centurion's ear, trying to defend Yahushua. What did Yahushua say to him when he said that? Get behind me, Hashatan. What is you talking about? Get behind me. Because they didn't understand what was going on. Because that was not part of the gospel message that they were proclaiming when they went out. They didn't say nothing about him dying, being buried, and resurrecting. This came afterwards. And this was done purposely. He allowed us to be martyrs so the message could get much further. Because if not, it would have stayed where it was at. He would have died like everybody else, and it would have went away. Okay, y'all listen. I'm just giving you some history. Healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness among the people. The news about him spread throughout all where? Syria. And they brought to him all the sick and the ill. So people only saw him healing people. They wasn't trying to really come to him about that message. They just want to get somebody healed. So listen, all right, I'll listen to what you're saying. All right, now, can you heal me now? We good? Can I get to the healing part? That's like some of these churches today. They got all these rivals and stuff, so you're going to get healed and all that. You ever seen that late at night? You'll see those church shows be coming on, and they be showing all about people being healed and everything like that. I don't hear nobody talking about the gospel of the kingdom. Nobody preaches this like that. They preach the gospel of Christ, but nobody talking about this. But this is what Yahushua preached. We're supposed to be following Yahushua, right? I think you're following Paul, as he had claimed to follow Yahushua to the best of his ability. Y'all preaching the gospel of Christ to even your own people when that message goes to the Gentiles and this goes to your people. Let me say it again. Y'all listen to this.
Say it again.
When you're speaking to a Gentile, you talk about the gospel of Christ. When you talk to your people, you got to give them the gospel of the king. Somebody get to that midnight, Frank. I think they're a little sleep, Frank. I know it's a little lengthy, but we get to it. Come on. Hopefully somebody understands this. And you got to understand his teaching to understand what that is. And if you want to know the gospel of Christ, if you go to Paul's teaching, then you know how to teach that to the Gentiles. You teach what he said to your own people. You teach what Paul said to the Gentiles. Are you following me?
Yes.
Somewhat? Matthew 15:21, Syro-Phoenician woman, Phoenicia and Syria, came to him, wanted some help. He's ignoring her. He's just ignoring her. But then he says something very interesting. When a Syro-Phoenician woman came to him, I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Why are you bothering me? Leave me alone. Why are you bothering me? Acts 11:19. So those who were scattered because of the persecution of who? Who had died early in the book of Acts? That of course is Stephen. That occurred in connection with Stephen, made their way to Phoenicia and Cyprus, and where? Antioch. Doing what? Read that.
Speaking the words of no one except to the Yahudi.
So even when they were scattered, they were only looking for the lost sheep of Israel. But two other people from amongst them was like, nah, we gonna get this to the Gentiles. They was not following protocol. Are y'all following? I need you to understand. You can't just read this like a piece of literature.
Come on now.
You gotta understand history, character. Character is in here. Situations, circumstances. There's a lot of things going on when you read this. I don't just read it like it's a book.
Right.
I read it like, wow, this is some heavy stuff. We gotta slow down for a second. So it says, but there were some of them, men of Cyprus and Cyrene, who came to Antioch and began speaking to the Greeks also, preaching Yahushua HaMashiach. The news about them reached the ears of the church at Jerusalem, and they sent Barnabas off to Antioch. Because now they're like, well, why are they preaching to the Gentiles? Yo, Barnabas, go find out what's going on, son. I don't know what they're doing up there, but they're out of order. Are y'all paying attention to this? This is important, man. So I said, and look at this. Who did Barnabas meet up there? Who did he meet? No, but who did he meet when he went there? Paul. And Paul getting these revelations saying this is okay. So he's like, all right, Paul, I guess it's okay. Let's go ahead and give it out to the Gentiles. And guess what? Paul never went to go verify it. Barnabas never went back to go verify it. They was rocking with this thing. I think y'all missing this. It wasn't the time yet. But Paul jumped the gun. These other guys jumped the gun. So now they had to control it, damage control. All right. We're going to have to give it to the Gentiles at some point. But let's figure out how we're going to do this thing. Because these other dudes, they just jumping the gun. They're just going everywhere, just bringing it everywhere. Like, hold on, slow down, son. Y'all doing too much. Okay. Please keep this. Family, this is very, very important. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
They sent Barnabas to go find out what happens. He come back with Paul. Paul's like, yo, I'm giving this to everybody. This is important, family. I'm trying to make it funny, but this is serious. So the early Syriac tradition was influenced by the gospel according to the Hebrews, and there's an author, scholar by the name of Arthur Bubis, and Arthur Bubis was able to connect the gospel according to the Hebrews to the tradition that was in the Syrian churches. And if you go back and read what I just quoted for you, we'll see that the gospel according to the Hebrews, which is originally the Hebrew book of Matthew, was what inspired the Syrian churches and the Israelites that was there. You're going to say, why is that important? I'm not going to go through this, but when you go to the various versions of the Syriac, you have the Diatessaron Bitation, which is a harmony gospel. So he took Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and he put them together to read as one gospel. So he selected which lines, put them all together to read as one gospel. That's what the Diatessaron is, right? Then you have the Old Syriac, which is one of them is Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest, and the Curetonian Gospels was two of the Old Syriac versions. Then you have later on the Peshitta, which is crafted after the Council of Nicaea. When the old other ones, especially the Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest, is contemporary to around the time when the Nicene Council was going on. But we'll see later on, there's a way that it reads where it gets the beginning process to Yosef, but by the time we get to the Peshitta, the seed text, and all these councils are going on, now all of a sudden we find the virgin birth in the tradition. It has found its way in there. Now we're giving the agency to Miriam instead of Yosef. You gotta understand history to know what's going on when you read these manuscripts. All right, let's get through this. Read all this. This is one page from the Palimpsest, one page for the Curetonian Gospel. As you can see, this one is in columns. This one just writes right across. Let me go through it, we go past that. I'm gonna go, well actually, let me say here. Now, Yosef, and he begot Yahusha, who is to be called Kara, the Messiah. This is what it says in the Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest in Matthew 1:16. Minister Collins went over this when he did his lecture, but if you read the footnote, the person who is transcribing this from this manuscript onto this paper, they say, yo, this is different. So they get a footnote next to it, and they say, wait, in the Greek, it reads something much different. They telling you like, oh, we find, wait, hold on, this text is saying what? Yosef, he begot Well, this Greek manuscript don't say that. So they got to get a footnote to let you know, hey, something's wrong here. It's calling your attention. Ain't nothing wrong. The Hebrew version of the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel according to the Hebrews, some of the tradition is kept in this text. One of them by giving the agency of procreation, or not procreation, but of producing or beginning to Yosef rather than Miriam. All right, I'm not going to go into this because you can go back and watch my lecture where I talked about it. But let me move forward. You see in the translation, it says, Mathan begot Jacob, Jacob begot Joseph, Joseph to whom was betrothed, Mary the Virgin, and he begot Jesus, who was called the Christ. That's what it reads in the Syriac. Now that's very different when you open up your Bible right now and you try to read that. They don't say that. It gets tricky. Right? I don't know why this is freezing like this, but it needs to hurry up so we can hurry up. Come on, come on, come on. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. We get to the bottom. I'm going to show y'all what I mean by this. All right. So now, as we're looking through, now it jumps ahead, right? It would jump ahead, right? Now I got to wait. Now I'm going to go through everything. All right, let's go back, let's go back. All right, let's go back. I'm going to run through this real quick. This is not really, I don't need to read a lot. All right. So, when we read the Greek manuscript, this is from Codex W. When we read the Greek manuscript, it gives the agency, right? So Yosef is the man of, or the husband of Marias, and Marias is the one who, egenete, which is the one that was responsible for the becoming the parent of, or being born of, or causing to happen, Iaisus, legomenos, who is to be called or said to be Christos. When you read this manuscript, you'll see there's two characters here for Iaisus and Christos. This is called the nomina sacra, or the sacred name. Anytime they came across Jesus or Christ, they would shorten it, put two characters, and put a line over it. And you'll see this technique in a lot of the Alexandrian text type, or the older text type manuscripts, and even some of the Byzantine manuscripts. But what this is doing is giving the agency of being brought forth is attributing to Marias as opposed to Joseph or Joseph. Okay? So we see now a different tradition, right? One was whoever translated this, and the other one from the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew. Okay. Markian priority, I'm not going to read all of this, but pretty much what the Markian priority is, they looked at the book of Mark and said, man, the book of Mark is very short. It starts off with him just starting his ministry. There's no genealogy, no virgin birth. And mind you, Mark was written first. Why would you miss the virgin birth if that was important? How you miss that, Mark? Okay. And then it stops at Mark chapter 16 at verse 8-9. Nothing else is written. Everything else is an interpolation later on, but the tradition was floating around. It just wasn't found in the manuscript so much later on. So the Markian priority says this. When we look at Luke and we look at Matthew, the places where Luke and Matthew agree the most is when it agrees with Mark. Now there's some places where the Greek Matthew and the Greek Luke agree, but we don't find it in Mark. And then we have places where they just disagree. So what they say is that document Q, or manuscript Q, is the other manuscript that which Matthew and Luke more than likely borrowed from in order to record the instances in which they agree where you don't find it in Mark. But the places that they agree in, they're saying that Mark was the foundation that everything Matthew and Luke was actually written on. This actually is one of the leading hypotheses in regards to the composition of the synoptic gospels. All right, that's very important that you understand that. Okay.
Okay.
You'll go back and research it, read it up yourself. I just want to expose you to it. Okay. And the reason why this is important is because if Mark was one of the first gospels, there's no virgin birth. Why is that missing? It's gone. So now whoever is using it as a foundation, and they copy, they get to a point like, man, I think the virgin birth story should be in here. Why did Mark miss that? So one of the translations of the Greek version of Matthew, not the Hebrew version. Remember, the Hebrew version is falsified, it's forged, it's cut up, it's missing 300 lines, because it ain't in there. Somebody put that in there. And Jerome says, I don't know who translated the Greek, but I got the Hebrew right here and it says something different. Now, wait, hold on. Y'all following? I don't think y'all following what I just said. A lot of times we argue over that story about Yahusha married and he got pregnant and what happened. Hey, the original Hebrew version of Matthew, they didn't have that in there. So we ain't got no problems. Matter of fact, when you read the book of Luke and the book of Matthew, and you go back to the census that was actually taken, there's issues and difficulties with that. Because somebody added that in Matthew. I say Luke is more accurate because Luke's super historical. But whoever put that into Matthew, they didn't consider Luke's right. Okay, I'm just trying to help you a little bit here.
What is Q?
Q is a hypothetical document that they believe that Matthew and Luke, which was written after Mark, borrowed from in places where they agree that we don't see in the book of Mark. And the places we see purple is the places where Matthew and Luke agree with the book of Mark. And as you can see, there's more of Matthew taken from Mark than Luke takes from Mark. But we see more Luke takes from this hypothetical Q than Matthew does, because Luke has longer writings in regards to instances that they agree in. And these other colors, right, and if we go back and look at this document, they say it's M, designated M, and designated L. M for Matthew, material found only in Matthew's special source, and L, material found only in Luke's special source. So either this was Matthew and Luke adding their own information, or later on somebody added this additional information here where it does not agree with Mark, and they don't agree anywhere in Q, which is hypothetical. We don't have a Q document, this is hypothetical. And there's places in Luke that they have either their own sources from their traditions, or they got it from some other document that we no longer have today. You understand?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that the virgin birth was important. Paul would have spoken about it, and it would have been in Mark. It's not there. When we understand how Christology is developing and who's coming in, now you can start to see what's going on. Maybe y'all not fully convinced. I got a few more slides. Can I get about 20 more minutes of your time? Okay? And I'll be done with it. Remember, this is not even the full. There's so much other detail I want to explain. I just can't do it right now for lack of time. But let's move forward. Now, can somebody read that to me? What does that say? How many of y'all know who Plutarch is? Raise your hand if you know who Plutarch is. You don't know who Plutarch is? But y'all reading the New Testament? Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay. Well, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. It has value. But look, Plutarch and the pneumatic pregnancy. If y'all don't know who Plutarch is, I think you should go on your phone and look him up right now. Because I'm not going to give you his biography. I'm just going to show you some of the things that he wrote. But he was one of the first people to come out with a pneumatic pregnancy account. What does pneuma mean in the Greek? No. In the Greek, what does it mean? Spirit is the connotation of it. What is the denotation of pneuma? Like pneumonia. If you have pneumonia, what does that mean? What kind of disease or ailment you have? Breathing, right? We're not going to say spirit. The doctor ain't going to say you got a spirit disease, brother. But that's the connotation that it was given. All right? So Plutarch was one of the first writers, and Plutarch is very well known. Very astute poet, historian. I mean, everything he wrote. Everybody in the Mediterranean region knew who Plutarch was, especially Gentiles. Because he was a Greek philosopher who was a Roman citizen, who was teaching this everywhere and influenced all the great minds. This is important, right? So I read this. Let us return to the relationship of the pneuma theou and women specifically. As we saw in Pneuma 4:4, Plutarch concurs with the Egyptians that with the woman it is not impossible for a pneuma of God to draw near and engender certain principles of generation. The ambiguity of the pneuma is important, and it makes apt Plutarch's analogy of the wind impregnating the hen, as is in Table Talk 718a. In both cases, the motion of air was felt to be a good analogy for how the divine comes into contact with the human female in order to make her pregnant. Are y'all reading this with me?
Yes.
Are y'all reading this with me? Yes. So now you can understand, if people with a Hebraic mind, who are actually there with the historical Yahushua, and their descendants from them, who are all Israelites, who are reading Torah and the Tanakh, you don't see no virgin birth anywhere in the Tanakh. I'm just saying. Now they're hearing Plutarch's work going around, talking about some virgin birth. They're just like, this has nothing to do with Yahushua. So now you got some Gentiles coming in and saying, yo, these indigenous Israelites who got this God, they got it wrong. There was a virgin birth. I did not see that. Because it didn't exist. You're getting it from some presupposition from your Greco-Roman Hellenistic mind, and you're bringing it into this movement. And now eventually, over time, because you get the state involved, they call your tradition orthodoxy. Everybody else is a heretic. See how that works?
Yes.
That's deep. But now let's see where this comes from. I don't even need to read the rest. But y'all can go and get this book yourself if you're interested. It's called Iesus Deus, which is the early Christian depiction of Jesus as a Mediterranean God. This is heavy. Y'all need to go and read this entire book. If y'all don't understand who this guy is, you're not going to understand what's going on, family. Okay, let me move forward. I don't need to read all of this. Y'all go read it yourself. Somebody read that. What does that say?
Philo, Alexandria, and the Logos.
And the what? And the Logos. Say it again, Fred. What does that say?
Philo, Alexandria, and the Logos.
And what year did Philo live?
20 before the Common Era through 50.
This is before Yahushua died, right?
That's right.
And this is after Yahushua died, right? He's a contemporary of him. And he's writing something very interesting in Alexandria. And Alexandria was a very important Greek city,
yes,
where all the wisdom would flow from there to all the known Mediterranean world. Y'all gotta understand this, family. What?
Next week.
Hey, next week. Important. But what did Philo write about the Logos? And who was Philo? He was a Hellenized Jew living in Alexandria. Hellenized Jew. So what he did was, he'll give you things, reference things in the scriptures, and give you a Hellenistic philosophical meaning behind it. That was not intended by what the scriptures is reading. But this was the philosophy that he had bought into. So he came up with this concept called the Logos. Before we find it anywhere else. When you go look at the composition of John, chapter 1, verse 1, all the way to what's the last verse? Before we see the words of Yahushua? That's called a prologue. That means that's not original. Somebody added the prologue to give you background information before we see what's going on. Okay, let me go back. Let me say it again. John chapter 1, and I believe it's at verse 17, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody get John chapter 1 out. That is a prologue that somebody with a Hellenistic philosophical mindset added into the text to presuppose you for everything else you read in the text. Okay. Let's go to John chapter 1. Read all the way down. You know, we talk about he's the light and the light is all men, all that other fun stuff, right? We can interpret that how we want to. We're entitled to that. But it is known by New Testament scholars to be a prologue that was not original to the text, but somebody added it. Now they ascribe it to John, but that doesn't mean that John wrote it. Okay. This is very important. And even the earliest, the John Ron's pamphlet that we have in the book of John, we don't find that in there. It's a very small fragment. But anything else we find after that, like the P fragments of John, a lot of this is missing, family. But anyway, so these are some points that Philo made. Let me get through it, right? Philo says the Logos as the mediator. He says perhaps the thought that was the uppermost in Philo's mind when he used the term Logos was that of mediation. God was never for him to transcend it, was never for him a transcendent being whose thoughts were totally and utterly beyond man's reach. Even if God is transcendent, he is not for Philo silent. He speaks and communicates, and for Philo the term Logos denotes the thought of Elohim expressed in a form that is, at least indirectly, accessible to men and knowable by them. This Logos concept, he helped to bring it forth. And he's using his Hellenistic, Greco-Roman influenced mind to read the Tanakh and put into it, eisegete into it, all of these Greek presuppositions. Are you following me? Yeah. But when we look at the disciples and Yahushua, all they did was keep the law. That's it. Just the law. They didn't care about all this stuff. There's all this other stuff. The Logos as light. The Logos Philo is the uttered or expressed thought of God. Not surprising, therefore, just as God is light and the archetypal source of every other light, so is the Logos. So wisdom is God's archetypal luminary and the sun is a copy of the image of it. So what was going on? Philo was looking at Genesis chapter 1 and trying to make sense of what he's reading based on his Hellenistic mindset. And somebody else comes along with that and they throw it in the book of John. All right, family. All right. Paul never talks about this, though. Paul don't say nothing about the Logos as light. He says you're the sons of light. Right. Which means the same thing Yahushua saying, you got to walk in the light. Because when darkness comes, ain't no man can work. We're not philosophizing anything. We tell you about something that's concrete and immediate, and that you need to do it now. But remember, John's the last gospel written. And all of a sudden we find this in there. Okay. It will not be a surprise to readers the prologue to John's gospel, where it is affirmed that the word was God, to find that Philo, without intending to infringe his Jewish monotheism, and without in fact doing so, though some Jewish writers have accused Philo of introducing a conception utterly alien to it, and one which damaged his absolute character. People had an issue with him. So where are you getting this stuff from? How are you putting this Greek stuff in this Hebrew text? Somebody said, wow, I think somebody got it. Somebody's following this. Thank you. All right? I know I'm not doing this in vain. And it goes to say, calls the Logos the second God, and whose image man has been made. God with the royal powers called Lord, or rather, Philo notes that this is how the two powers are described in Scripture. The description of the Logos as the second God, Philo deduces from that statement, in the image of God he made man in Genesis 9:6. In other words, Philo derives his usage here from Scripture, lest one be tempted to see in Philo's language more than part of the conceptual background to the process of Christian theological development that began with the New Testament, and instead see actual anticipations of Athanasian language. It is important also to note in the Legomena. Now, I know y'all probably don't know what that means. What it's saying is that by the time Athanasius came on the scene, which is contemporary to the Council of Nicaea, we start to see this type of language. Okay, I think y'all missing that. But let's keep moving forward, all right? However, the Logos is the highest self-expression of God, and is the divine word. It's said to be high above the divine powers and has not been visibly portrayed, being like to no one of the objects of sense. The Logos is the image of Elohim, chiefest of all beings, intellectually perceived, placed nearest with no intervening distance to the alone true existent one. Now we see things that are influencing Paul. Paul was going around talking to Gentiles who were Hellenized, who would have had this understanding of the Hebrew text. So to appeal to their current presuppositional understanding, I have to speak to you like I'm Philo. I think y'all missed this. Y'all missed this. I'm just trying to get y'all to understand what's going on here. If you don't look at contemporary writings, you don't know what's influencing people during that time. Paul said, I became what? To the Greeks, a Greek. He said, I'm not making that up. I become all things to all men, so I may win some. I ain't gonna win all of them. Who's it with somebody? So if I think like Philo, and I write my work similar to the things of the Hellenistic Jews who are writing in Alexandria and a lot of the world, now I can get these Gentiles in. Because now I can transfer them the understanding of the Tanakh and their Greco-Roman mindset. And I can use an archetype of who? Philo. And then whoever looked at the writings that's in John, the sayings of Yahushua, they said, yo, I think it'll be important if we add this prologue in there. We want to predispose people to understand who Yahushua is. His pre-existence is important. Even though we don't see that nowhere in the Synoptic Gospels. They don't talk about his pre-existence. Matthew, Mark, Luke, they don't say anything like that. But when we get to John, the Son of Man who's in heaven, came down from heaven, did all this stuff for us. So it's real deep when you get into this stuff. Trying to get you to understand these things. Certain things we really don't have to make a big deal about if we understand the background behind it. I got it. The last one is, he talks about the eternity of the Logos, right? He was here from everlasting to everlasting, and the Logos is the power of Elohim in the world. At times, Philo's Logos is a kind of cosmic power present in the world. It is that which binds all things together and causes them to cohere. Whoa, hold on, wait. This aspect of Philo's Logos doctrine has close affinities with Stoicism and the thought of Heraclitus in particular. As for Paul, it is the Son who is the image of the invisible God, in whom all things consist or cohere, Colossians 1:15 and 17. So Philo, using similar language, can speak of the Logos as the unbreakable bond, the desmos, which holds the universe together in a coherent, unified whole. The Logos is also described as the ruler and steersman of all. Now, Paul is generating a different gospel. Paul says, this is my gospel. See, y'all missed that. See, when I bring stuff like that out, it goes over people's head. Paul says, this is my gospel. Paul, wait, hold on, Paul. How are you going to personalize the gospel? Because he has to give it to a certain people. So it's not the same gospel that the apostles were teaching, who I barely know, by the way. It is a gospel that I have to kind of manipulate, transform. I put some elements of our culture in it, but I'm giving it to Gentiles who are Hellenized, so they can understand these things. But Paul really didn't have to do that, because when Peter encountered who? Cornelius, did he do all of that? He gave him philosophy, or he gave him facts? Yes, I know you want to say something, but...
It seemed like Paul was more dangerous after he started persecuting us and went to the Gentiles than he was when he was persecuting.
So look, I just want to make sure you understand. I'm not telling y'all how to feel about Paul. I hear you. I'm not saying Paul was right or wrong. That's not what I'm here to do.
No, but I'm not making a
No, this is not to you. I got you. It's not to you. All I'm giving you is things to consider. I'm giving you the facts. I'm giving you background information. So don't go try to beat up on Paul now. That's not what I'm saying. No, I got you. Just understand what's going on. And you'll know why he's doing what he's doing, for the reasons that he's doing it. Maybe he felt remorse and said, man, I was killing all these Christians and throwing them in jail. Maybe now I have to owe him something. Maybe he did get a revelation like, damn, I got to make up for what I did. So let me do something to enhance this movement. You never know what's going on in his mind. You only have what's written. You don't have what's not written. Okay? So again, I'm not telling you to beat up on Paul. I'm just giving you all the facts. All right? So, all right. Oh, it's the last slide. All right.
Hey, brother,
I'm done.
Before you get your last slide,
Okay.
for everybody historically, because you kept saying it, I just want to remind everybody, and we're going to touch it next week, but I think it's important to mention it again. Remember, Hellenized, that was Alexander.
That's right.
Alexander conquered the entire world, the known world as known to the Greeks. We're going to hit that hard next week. So when you say there were Hellenized Gentiles, yes, you had white people who were Hellenized, that were brought under Greekdom. You had white people from Spain, Macedonia, France, all of the known Europea that were brought under Greek culture.
There you go. Because they also had some different cultures in Europe. Everybody thinks that the Greeks represent all of European thought, and that's not true. They were the pinnacle of European society or civilization, but there was other nuances amongst those people. Hellenization was important because what Alexander the Great wanted to do was bring the whole world together. Ecumenical. So an ecumenical mindset means everybody's the same, everybody's equal, but we have to believe one thing. So what he wanted to do was, he wanted to translate all the ancient works into Greek, and then get rid of them. I'm not saying he intended to do it, but a lot of these we don't have no more, but we have the Greek version. We have the Greek version, that's the Septuagint, that was translated from a Hebrew text that we don't have, conveniently, but we have the Septuagint though. Are you understanding what's being said here? Okay. I want you to understand.
And brother, and that wasn't just the Europeans nor the Hebrews. He did that to the Indians and India.
Everybody.
He did that to the African nations,
to the Mesopotamians, all of them.
And we're going to hit all that next week.
Matter of fact, he took the calendar that they were using from the Babylonians. Because we also had several other calendars. We had the Athenian calendar, the Macedonian calendar, which was modified based on the Babylonian calendars. When they went into Babylon, they met the Chaldean priests, and they learned some stuff. They was like, oh, we gotta put this into this one world order system. That's what he attempted back then. And that's why a lot of people hated Alexander for doing it. A lot of indigenous people hated him for doing that. Because he's taking all their wisdom and he's Hellenizing it. Because he wants to bring everybody in the empire together. Let's all become one.
Same thing he's trying to do this.
Hey, same thing we got trying to go on today. So let me get to my last slide and I'm done. But hopefully y'all begin to understand what's going on. And I have to give you a primer. This is just to get you excited to research further. But when you ask me, what is your opinion on the veracity of the New Testament? I will say, for the most part, it's solid. But there are elements of it that are questionable once you understand the history behind it. But once you understand the history, you go back and you read it, you won't be confounded by these things that you find, but you'll have an understanding why it was added there. Do you understand? Con? So I'm gonna give, after I give you all this, everything's being handed over. This is Minister Karn's gonna have to do everything else from here. I'm just giving you the background. That's it. That's the fact. I'm not telling you what to believe. That's his job in order to put that forth. All I'm doing is giving you the research. That's it. So I still subscribe to what I call the Brit Hadashah, but I subscribe to a reconstructed version of it, which consists of about 75 to 80% of what we have now. But 20, 25%, there's something that we see influences from other things in there. All right? Especially when Jerome says, we don't know who translated it.
Right.
I don't know who did it. But I got my own version. I translated it to Greek and Latin. And then you know what scholars go back to say? They go back and say, I don't think Jerome knew what he was talking about. Then they start to question some of the things the church fathers said. Because they was keeping some of the truth about some of the history that was going around. How could you be a New Testament Greek scholar with Greek manuscripts and you got Jerome, a church father, saying, I don't know who translated that, but here's my own version? That's going to be an issue for you, right? Because you want everybody to believe that the original version was in Greek. So anybody that says otherwise, that's questionable. You know, I know Phineas said this, I know Eusebius said it, but that's questionable. I don't know if they knew what they were talking about. But everything else you like. So, last slide, and we're done. So in reconstructing the historical message of Yahusha, the historical message, his pre-existence, it's not there. The virgin birth is not there. These things are not important if you're an Israelite going back to your culture. It's not important. We have to know, what was he really teaching? Repentance. He was telling them, turn from your ways. You're thinking too Hellenistic. You're integrating too many with traditions of men. Y'all need to turn from that and come back to this written law. Because he says, yo, the Pharisees and scribes sit in the seat of Moses. And everything they say to do, you do it. But don't do as they do, because some of them are hypocrites. But he's telling you to follow what they teaching from the book of Moses. Why would he say something like that? Somebody get real quick, Matthew chapter 10, people think I'm making this up. Why would he say something like that if he knows the law is going to be done away with? Why would I teach anybody this? That sounds crazy, right? People say, oh, but he was only talking to his Jewish audience. That's what they say to you. He's only talking to the Jewish audience. So what parts that he's saying do I follow and parts don't I follow? Which part? Oh, you only want me to deal with the love part in John. I see what you're talking about. You got it? Okay, you can read it.
You want verse 1?
Yeah.
Then Yahushua said to the crowd and to his disciples, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law.
Oh, the official what?
Interpreters.
Of the law?
Of Moshe.
Well, a lot of people have issues with Pharisees. Oh, Pharisees are wicked and evil. But look what he just said to you. Read that again.
Verse 2. The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official
Are
interpreters
the official interpreters of what?
of the law of Moshe.
Wait, what version is that you reading?
NT.
Oh, that's why. It's
What
very
you
loose.
want?
That's cool. Go ahead. Finish reading it.
Okay, verse 3. So practice and obey whatever they tell you.
Whoa! Do what?
Practice and obey whatever
Practice
they tell
and
you.
obey whatever they tell you. But what else?
But don't follow their
But
example.
don't follow their example. Why?
For they don't practice what they teach.
They don't practice what they preach. You can stop there. So that means if he said the law was done away with in Matthew chapter 5, why in Matthew chapter 9 he telling people to follow what the Pharisees are saying? Then he's not telling you to get rid of the law. How people miss that? How people miss that? I'm just trying to figure it out. How people miss that?
Well, brother, that's because they don't even read it.
So look, no, they don't read it the way it's supposed to be read.
They don't read it at all.
They're all okay. They cherry pick that. There you go. The king, and I want y'all to ask some of your Christian friends that question. That's a good question to ask them. The kingdom of heaven, or Elohim, which is at hand. That means this current kingdom is going to be destroyed, and if you connected to it, you're going to go down with it. So I'm teaching you how to be autonomous, so you can be distinct from this system, so that way, if when I return, I can present you. Let me say it again. If you're following the ways of the world, then I can't present you to the Father. But if you set yourself apart from the world, and he says, and teach others to do these commandments, you will be great in this kingdom that's to come. But the kingdom that's to come, it's not for you to sit and wait. You got work to do before it's here. I think some people who believe in the rapture, sorry about that, they have issues with that. Go to Acts chapter 1, real quick. Peter said, yo, when you gonna restore the kingdom? Peter, that's what Peter said. First thing Peter said, you teaching us all of this stuff, when you gonna restore this kingdom? And what did Yahushua say? That's important. Because in Matthew 24, he's told all things are gonna happen. He said, ain't nobody know that, not even the Son. Only the Father knows that. Wait, you're limited? If he is the Son of Man, you're limited? Are you limited? Okay. Yeah.
Verse 1.
Yeah, read verse 1 and just read down.
In my first book, I told you,
Skip that, go to verse 2.
until the day he was taken up to heaven.
Go into verse 3.
During the 40 days after he suffered and died, he appeared to the apostles from time to time.
Okay, keep going.
And he proved to them in many ways that he was actually alive.
All right, keep going.
He talked to them about the kingdom of
Because
heaven.
remember, the key word is 40 days. Because we had Passover unleavened bread. Because when he came back, it was during unleavened bread. And then 40 days later, sometime later, what's the next feast? Shavuot, which is called what in Greek? Pentecost. Keep going.
Verse 4. Once when he was eating with them, he commanded them, do not leave Jerusalem.
Do not leave Jerusalem. Go ahead.
Until the Father sends you the gift you promised.
Okay.
As I told you before.
Keep going.
John baptized with water, but in just a few days you'll be baptized with the set-apart Spirit.
Keep going.
So when the apostles were with the Messiah,
When they was with him, go ahead.
they kept asking him, Master.
Wait, hold on. The only thing he was really concerned with is this imminence that he was telling them while he was alive. Keep going.
They kept asking him, Master,
What?
has the time come
As the time comes
for you to free Israel?
for you to what?
Free Israel.
Free Israel
And restore our
and
kingdom.
restore the whole world's kingdom.
Our kingdom.
Our kingdom. Our king. Keep going. Now, people be looking over this stuff, man. Keep going.
Verse 7, he replied, the Father alone has the authority.
Only the Father knows. Well, hold on. You just was resurrected, son. You don't know what's going on? He said, lie. Only the Father knows what's going on. And look, if he was pre-existent part of the Trinity and all of that, he would have that information. Keep reading.
The Father alone has the authority.
That's it.
To set those dates and times.
Wait, hold on. I thought I read in Matthew 28 where it says all power is given to me in heaven and earth. But he says what? Wait, hold on. Slow down, family. Whoa. Y'all missing this. Wait, say that again. Read that.
The Father alone.
The Father alone what?
Has the authority.
Wait, hold on. The Son. All authority was given to the Son.
The Father alone.
Only the Father alone
has the authority.
has the authority.
To set those dates and times.
So if he was given authority, there was some limitation. Because he's not the Father. Wait, did I hurt somebody in here? Let me say it again. Even if he was given all authority, depending on how you want to translate that, he still had a limitation. Okay, keep going.
And they are not for you to know.
They are not for you to know. Wait, hold on. They asking him a really relevant question. And we're going to keep rocking. We want to see this kingdom come down to earth. I'm suffering right now, paying these tithes, I'm paying these tributes to Rome on top of the tithe and the temple tax. I could barely make a living. We're being persecuted, beat up, and you telling me I don't need to know this? Exactly. Keep going. Keep going.
Verse 8. But you will receive power.
But you receive power
When the set-apart Spirit
when the
comes
set-apart
upon you.
Spirit comes upon you. Go ahead.
And you will be my
And you will be my what?
Witnesses.
My what?
Witnesses.
My witnesses. Keep going.
Telling people about
Telling
me.
people about me
Everywhere in Jerusalem.
everywhere in Jerusalem,
Throughout Judea.
throughout Judea,
In Samaria.
and Samaria,
And the ends of the earth.
and the ends of the earth. Remember, when we looked at the persecution, when the apostles left, they were only going to the Jews. But they had to do damage control because some people crept away from them and said, yo, let's give it to the Gentiles. They didn't follow protocol. And Paul also didn't follow protocol. But I'm not saying he was right, he was wrong. All I'm saying is, according to the protocol, he was not there. Certain things he did not adhere to.
He made them
So do we give him, I'm not going to say all of that, do we give him a pass because he actually helped in some way, or do we have to scrutinize what he's doing? I'm leaving it up to you and leaving it up to the head on how he teaches it here. All I'm doing is giving you the information. Now, he also instructed the people how to practically apply Torah. Well, listen to this is very important. By teaching Midrash Agadah, which embraces the interpretation, illustration, or expansion in a moralizing or edifying manner of the non-legal portions of the Tanakh. The other part of Midrash is Halakha, which deals with how do we figure out how to slaughter a lamb. There's no instructions in here. So you put those things forth, right? We find a lot of that when we read the Talmud. The Talmud tries to keep a lot of those traditions. But what Yahushua was doing was giving you Agadah, which is giving you an illustration, an expansion, an interpretation of what is read in the law. Because the people did not understand what was going on. So he just came there to be a light and to give you how to practically apply Torah by using these principles. The same way I told you that when you read the book of Proverbs, it simplifies how to follow the law. it gives you everyday little nuggets of wisdom. Oh, and you follow it, and you're actually keeping elements of Torah. So understand what he was doing. He wasn't changing the law. You know, some people who are opponents of the New Testament say, oh, look, he changed the law. But I don't see y'all saying that, but anybody else that gives you their midrash. They're not changing the law. They're expanding the understanding of it to show you how to apply it in your current condition. It's simple. It's really simple. But people try to make this difficult. And also his prophecies. The regathering of the children of Israel, the judgment and return of the Son of Man, and the persecution of himself and those that follow after him. These are the major tenets of his message. Everything else is an addition. His death, burial, and resurrection, his martyrdom was necessary to bring it to all parts of the world. You understand what I'm saying? Let me say it again. His martyrdom was necessary and his reappearance. Because if he didn't reappear, this movement would have went nowhere. Historians cannot tell you that a miracle happened. They cannot do that because that's not in the scope of history, according to them, being secular. What they can tell you is that the belief that he reappeared was so strong that it empowered a group of people from the hood so willing to die for this message and bring it everywhere to reach their people. Something happened with his movement that did not happen, because he wasn't the only movement that was going around. There was a lot of other movements popping up. People trying to do the same thing. But his movement was different, and then when it came together, they're talking about how they want to deal with the apostles. They said, listen, if this thing is of man, it ain't going nowhere. But if this is of Elohim, then there's nothing that we can do to stop it. But what did the enemy do? Since he cannot stop it, he's going to co-opt with it. He'll infiltrate it, he'll rewrite it, and he'll represent it to you. And unless we do this type of reconstructive work, we can never get back to the historical message that Yahushua intended for his followers, to the house of Israel, going to the lost sheep, so that he can redeem us and initiate the regathering process before the return and judgment and the settlement of the kingdom. Okay? So when you understand these tenets and you go back and read the text for the Hebraic mindset, understanding Torah, you'll be able to understand that this is essentially, when we filter everything else out, what he was trying to convey. And anything else that you read on top of it is additional information that's either authentic or could have been put in there by a translator, or could have been a marginal note that found its way into the text. But these are the most important things for us who are on the house of Israel, okay? With that, thank you for listening, family. I hope you enjoyed it.